Hello, and welcome to the Sunday show. Jimmy Snow has made the terrible decision to allow me to be your host, Forrest Valkai, and I am joined today by the amazing and charming and surprisingly good dancer, Eve was framed.
Hi, everybody. I'm so excited to be here. I'm so excited we finally are getting to work together. I don't know how.
Yeah.
It's almost like we've had to avoid this, but we haven't. It just hasn't happened until today.
Yeah, and we've known each other for a minute. I've been following you on TikTok for some time. We met at a party once.
Yeah.
Like just for some reason, this particular set of circumstances has never been a thing. It's criminal.
Right. We've actually met in person, which is very rare in this situation.
Yeah.
Because I feel like most of us have not met in person, but
yeah, it's bizarre. But yeah, no, I'm so happy that this is finally like occurring. I'm so happy to finally get to work with you because you've been just a freaking like rising star in this space for so long, and so many people have asked me to get on the show with you and to like, so this is just a wonderful dream team, a match made in not heaven. I'm so excited to see where it goes. Before we get started though, me too. Before we get started though, I do have a couple of things I got to tell everybody. First of all, today is the 21st of April in the year of our Lord 2024. It's a day.
it is a day.
I want to let everybody know, right? I encourage everybody to call in if you are a theist or a creationist or have some other supernatural claim. It's our entire job to talk about those things. And so if you have something you want to say and you want to try out your best arguments, present your best evidence, talk about something that's really moving and interesting to you, this is your chance to do it. Call that number down on the bottom of the screen, 720-619-2288, or just use the link in the description if you're going to call in over the web. Those are ways you can get a hold of us right now. We've got lines open, especially for theists, and we always prioritize theist callers. But before we start on taking calls, I want to let everybody know that Jimmy has launched a new podcast. God help us all. It is hosted. It's actually really fun. I just recorded an episode yesterday. Each episode is hosted by Jimmy himself, at least one episode a week. He calls one of us, one of the other hosts.
I was the victim last week.
He called me in the shower. He just immediately has this impromptu discussion about our lives, and then gives us a pop quiz about things. He asked me about bone marrow and bridges and things. Each of the episodes that he records these episodes, and we do this quiz. And if we get the answers right on the quiz, then we select a random patron from our Patreon, and they get a prize. And so if you want to listen to this show, it's going out to patrons first, and only patrons can win the prizes. And only patrons can leave comments on these things. I believe patrons get the show, or no, sorry, free patrons and people who are on the Discord, like the Discord only patrons, they get the show like 2 weeks later.
2 weeks later, yeah,
and
exactly.
Yes, and YouTube channel members get it, but it's on a delay as well. So the best way to like listen to this show and to interact with the show and maybe have a chance to benefit from this show is to join our Patreon. We currently have 697 paid members, which is more than I have.
Exciting.
That's
amazing.
Really cool. And when we hit 1,000, Jimmy has told me that he's going to start a like Christian movie review thing, just totally stealing my idea. I'm the only person to have had that idea. No one else has ever done that before me. So shame on him. But it's going to be starting. I think it's going to have Matt and Jimmy watching God's Not Dead is like what they're planning to be the first one. So check out the Patreon. It's a really cool thing to do. He has other plans. I think at 2,000 patrons, he wants to start like a D&D campaign series or something like that. Again, totally just stealing my ideas. That's totally fine. But he's got a lot going on with this, and he's trying to like build this community a little bit more, and he's asked us to talk about it. So in order to help promote that a little bit more, at the end of this show, stick around after we say goodbye, and they're going to play like a promotional clip, a little snippet of my episode that we just recorded yesterday. So check that out.
I started listening to it, and it was really, really good so far. So you guys are going to want to go listen.
I have not listened to any of it, and I am terrified by what you've heard.
I don't like listening to anything with me on it, so I didn't even listen to mine either. But
I'm very much really the same way. We'll get into we've got a bunch of other shows this week, and I'm happy to tell you about them. We'll get into that later. But first, I think it's about time that we start this show for reals and take a call. Call into that number down below, 720-619-2288. We had discussed briefly before the show started one that we like. I'm gonna go with line number 4. Is that still cool with you?
Perfect.
Sweet. We've got Zach, pronouns he, him, calling in from Florida, says that using faith as a tool for knowing if you're right or wrong is a good thing, or maybe, I don't know, it just says using faith. It doesn't have an antecedent there. Zach, you are on the line. How are you doing today?
Hello. Hey, Zach.
Good. Can you guys hear me?
Yes, I can.
Okay, well, thanks for your time. I appreciate you guys accepting my call. This is my first time calling in, so sorry if... Like I'm not a philosopher, didn't take any philosophy classes, so I'm not,
Same here.
I don't have the best arguments or whatever, so, but
I only took the one that was necessary for an associate's degree at one time, so like, don't worry about it, bro. We're all going to have a terrible conversation about philosophy together, like a family.
Great. So, I believe, I don't know which show I watched, but it was either The Atheist Experience or The Line. And I heard a call, and I heard this conversation, and immediately a question came to my head. But I saw or heard somebody say, like, you have faith, and like, well, faith has led people to right answers, and faith has led people to incorrect answers. So faith can't be a tool to determine, like, what's true or what's not true. I was wondering, like, do you guys agree with that?
Can I ask you before we continue with the conversation, because I hear varying answers from people, what is your definition of faith? When you say faith, what exactly do you mean by that?
Okay, 1 second. I had it pulled up just so I wouldn't forget it.
No, that's great. You're already doing better than me.
I love the preparedness.
I just want to make sure we're on the same page.
Things hoped for. I guess, like, I'm a Christian theist. The assurance of things hoped for.
Okay.
But if you had to put that into your own words, what would you say that means?
I guess, okay, so based off of, like, evidence, or maybe I could give an example to explain how I believe it, because I can't really...
Sure.
Like, if someone over time does something and then says they're going to do it in the future, I have faith in that person will do it. So I guess that's how I think about faith.
What's the difference then between, like, what you just described, which I wouldn't use the word faith for that, but we can get into that, the weeds about. I don't want to make like a weird little semantic nitpicky argument. I just want to make sure I'm understanding where you're coming from. What's the difference between that and a child having faith in Santa Claus?
Oh, great.
Like, why would you use the word faith for both? Because those seem very different, right? One seems kind of like laughably silly, and the other one seems like a reasonable expectation of something that's going to happen next. Like, I wouldn't say I have faith that the sun's going to rise tomorrow. I have a reasonable expectation of it because, number one, it's happened every day for millennia, and number two, I have a pretty good understanding of how the solar system works. And so, like, my knowledge of astrophysics and history leads me to have a reasonable expectation that the sun will continue to rise. Faith is not required. And it sounds like what
Yeah,
you're describing
it's
here
it's
is like,
trust in an institution more so than faith. It sounds like you're using the word
yes.
faith to say trust. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just want to make sure I understand the difference, because otherwise I'm going to criticize faith, and the answer that will come up, because this is the answer that's been presented to me a million times by theists, is, well, you have faith in gravity, or you have faith in something, you know what I mean, something else that's easily testable and predictable, which faith by definition isn't.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. So could you repeat the question just one more time?
Yeah. So just what's the difference? You said that faith, the way you described it as an example, was like if somebody says they're going to do something and they've done it a bunch of times, and then you have faith that
Yeah.
they'll do it again because they said they're going to do it. So I'm asking you, what's the difference for you between the faith in Santa Claus, or the faith in the Easter
Yep.
Bunny or the Tooth Fairy, and the faith in having a reasonable expectation that someone's going to do the thing that they say they're going to do, that you know that they can do?
All right. So like when you mentioned like the sun coming up, I
Sure.
guess like that's the cosmic order, or like it stays consistent, but with human beings, consistency is like not guaranteed. So, but like I know where you're probably going to get at with the Easter Bunny and like Santa Claus, and then like obviously what I believe Jesus Christ is, well,
Well, you don't have to try to guess where we're going with it. You can just answer your questions, or answer the questions as they come up, and we can get to each thing.
yeah,
Because we want to give
yeah,
you time to like actually present your answer. This is not like a gotcha game or anything like that. So you're doing great.
yeah.
I know this is like
So,
it can be a nerve-wracking thing.
well, I guess like with like, what's the difference between like, what'd you say, Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny, and like
What's the
faith in
difference between
them?
having faith in and using faith as a tool to decide whether God exists versus having faith to decide that Santa Claus exists? I believe that's what Forrest was asking you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
more
I
or
would
less.
say
Yeah.
like, okay. Well, I would say like for me, it'd be like evidence for God, and then like no evidence for the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus. I knew Santa wasn't real
So
when I saw my parents wrapping up my presents under the tree, and then putting them under the
so
tree, and they said it was.
let me ask you,
Oh,
Zach, if like isn't like, man, maybe you have a different definition than me, but like, isn't evidence the opposite of faith? Isn't the point of faith to believe in something even when you don't have evidence? It's hope for things unseen or something like that. Yeah, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's
yeah.
believing in something even when you don't have a good reason to believe in it. It is the good reason. So what if you didn't have evidence for God? Would you stop believing in it? Or would you rely on faith?
Good question. Okay. Just based off that question that you asked, if
Mhm.
there was no evidence, or I guess I need to understand the definition of evidence. Did you like
Sure.
give me your guys' definition of that, just so I know?
Yeah, so for me, evidence is something that's like objective, something that we can all see and agree on, something that holds up against like, logical scrutiny, something empirical that
Yep.
we can all identify
Okay.
as like pointing in a certain direction. So like, for example, if you take like a murder trial, right? It's
Yep.
not good enough to say I have faith this guy murdered this dude, or I have faith that he didn't. What if you need footprints in the snow leading up to the scene, you need fingerprints on the knife, you need like maybe a photograph or a written motive, or like all these things that are objectively obviously there, and you can put those facts in order and come up with a
Yep.
story. So that's what evidence is for me, is the facts that you put together in order to build an understanding about something.
Okay. So like I wouldn't say I have measurable empirical evidence or data to prove, or not prove, show God's existence. But
Sure.
I think
I agree.
I don't I don't have arguments that, like, off the top of my head that, like, but okay, wait. I think there are arguments that make a good case for why a God exists, and I don't have those memorized, but, like, I've heard some debates where theists make really good points on what, like, based off
Zach,
their arguments and logic that a God exists.
but Zach, why do you
So,
believe that a God exists?
well,
Not somebody else's argument.
'cause,
Why do you believe?
yeah, because, well, we'll just use the most common, like, uh, like the Big Bang, right? Big Bang, the Big Bang theory, from what I understand, establishes, like, time, space, and matter. But before
More or
that,
less, yeah.
we don't really know what happened before, or where it came from, what caused it, what was before it.
We
So,
don't, the question of before doesn't even really make sense in that case. Yeah, you're
okay,
asking what happened before time started, so before the concept of before had any meaning, and you're asking what happened outside of the universe. So what happened before in a place that wasn't everywhere? You know, what does that even mean?
yeah.
And like that's yeah. So we don't know what's going on there, and so here I am, just saying I don't know. Why do you need to fill that gap in with something that you just said a second ago you don't have any evidence for?
Well, I was just saying,
Like if
or what I was going to say is, I just feel like I can't exclude the idea of there not being an intelligent designer just based off that.
so let me ask you a question, Zach. I have a couple of them, but I'll try to go one at a time because I tend to get
All
excited
right.
and I'll ask 30,000 things. But like, if you know what this sounds like a little bit to me is what's commonly called the God of the gaps, which is like we don't know this thing, therefore God. So like a couple hundred years ago, it was the same thing about the age of how where the Earth came from. We didn't know how planets formed, and we're like, well, how did this place get here? Now we know how planets formed, and we don't need a God there anymore. Go back a little bit further, was lightning and earthquakes. We didn't know where those things came from. What is a rainbow? Clearly there's a God involved. Now we know where those things come from. And so for the past, especially a couple of millennia, this God has just been this ever receding pocket of ignorance. And you get to a certain point with people who are theistic but still like science, where it's all of these gaps that I don't understand. That's where God is. Or if we do understand it, then it's very intricate and very perfect and very fine tuned. So clearly that's God doing that too. And I wonder, like, if we did know every single thing about how the universe came into being, if we knew from start to finish, we could play it on a cassette tape over and we just knew everything about it. Would you then become an atheist? Or is it just I don't know this, so there must be some magic involved? Or do you have a different reason that stands on its own 2 feet?
Yeah. Well, I don't think I can become an atheist, but just because I just can't imagine, or I haven't heard, studied, learned enough about just what happened before the Big Bang. Like, I've heard people say, "Oh, the universe could be eternal," but I can't seem to rationalize that.
Let me ask it a different way, because I think you missed what I was saying. So let me ask a different way, because maybe I
Okay.
didn't articulate it properly. If we didn't know anything at all about
Yep.
how where lightning came from, if we didn't know anything about lightning, would you say that lightning is evidence of God because it's so inconceivable we don't know what it is?
Yeah.
Okay, so
Wait.
now
Oh, I thought you were still
in this world,
continuing the question.
no, I was just asking you, like, if we didn't know anything about where lightning came from or where earthquakes came from, or pick your favorite thing. If we didn't know
Yeah.
anything about any magnificent scientific phenomenon, would you then use that ignorance as a reason to believe in the supernatural?
Probably not.
Right? Why not?
Well, like if I didn't know where earthquakes came from, and then we found out that it's like tectonic plates shifting or whatever, something like that.
Mhm.
Well, that's why earthquakes happen. So I wouldn't, like, I know that I know that is true. It's not like
Right.
God,
But
like,
But I'm asking you, if you didn't know that, if you didn't know about
Yeah.
plate tectonics at all, which, everybody before the 1960s didn't know about plate tectonics, right? So like,
Yep.
you now live in 1950 something. You don't know what plate tectonics are. You don't know what's going on with earthquakes. Do you believe that God causes earthquakes? Or would you say, this is something we don't know, and I hope we find out someday, and you leave it at that?
I would hope I find out someday, right?
Yeah.
I think that's what you want me to
So
say.
why? Well, that's I think is the most reasonable thing to say, because
Yeah.
otherwise you can fill in that gap with absolutely anything. You can fill it in with God, and somebody else can fill it in with the giants who live beneath the earth and in the hollow earth, and they bang upon the pillars of the world. And it's the claims mean the same nothing, because you're just filling in something that you also don't have evidence for.
But couldn't I say, like, well, time is a gap too? Because, like, well, if someday we'll find out what it is, well, then I could insert, like, well, time is, instead of God of the gaps, I could just say time of the gaps, because eventually, assuming we have a lot of time, we'll eventually figure it out.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's the thing, is you're not actually imposing. If you say we'll learn this someday, that's kind of it's a hopeful position, sure, but you're not actually putting an explanation in there. We have evidence for the fact that over time we do learn some stuff. That's happened. That's why we're talking on the internet right now, is because we've learned shit over time. And so, like,
Yeah.
for you to say, I hope we figure this out someday, but until then, I'm going to have to sit with this. I don't know. It doesn't mean I'm happy about not knowing. It just means I don't know. If you say that, you're not filling in this gap with something else. So what you're doing by saying I have to believe in God because I don't understand what's going on here, is you're saying, here's something I don't have any evidence for, so I'm going to put something else that I don't have any evidence for in that spot and use my ignorance as evidence for this new thing. And that doesn't make any sense. You wouldn't. I don't know you very well, Zach. I've just met you a few moments ago. But I give you the credit of saying that I don't think you would do that in any other situation ever. If your car didn't start in the morning and you didn't want to pop the hood and look at what was going on, you wouldn't say, I don't know what's going on with this car. It must be goblins. Goblins have destroyed my car. Don't have any evidence for goblins, but I don't know what broke my car, therefore probably goblins, right? You wouldn't do that, because that would be a silly thing to do. You would say, all right, there's a reasonable explanation here. It's something that follows the laws of physics and chemistry. I don't know what it is, because I don't know shit about cars, but I bet there's a mechanic somewhere who has a pretty good idea. And so now today we look at the Big Bang. Instead of saying, I don't know what happened here, but I bet there's magic, and there's this guy, there's some guy who's out there outside of space and time, and he whipped up the whole universe because he's a space wizard and he can do shit like that. And it was just some guy, and I don't know, but I'm assuming I don't have any evidence for that, but I don't know what happened, so it's probably just some guy. And instead of saying, I don't know what this is, but I bet there's a physicist out there that has a pretty good idea, and I'm gonna go ask them, or I'm just gonna say I don't know, and I'm gonna live with my life just not knowing a thing, because that's okay to do sometimes. Why do you handle these two situations so differently, Zach?
With the car and God
and goblins. Yeah, cars, gods, and goblins. That's that. What do we do? You know?
Well, like I understand, like, the atheist argument using, like, logic and reasoning that's measurable through the natural world to, like, explain our reality and whatnot. But
Zach, that's not answering his question. Why are you doing that? You don't have to try to figure out, like, an atheist argument or anything like that. Just why would you think that way?
All right, sorry, I kind of lost track. Can you repeat the question one more time?
So, in layman's terms, otherwise I'll go on another 10-minute tangent. Long story short, if you don't know something about your everyday life, just in normal style, if there's something that happened that you have no idea about, you don't invent a magical explanation for it. You're willing to say, I don't know what happened. Maybe you investigate it, maybe you don't, but you're okay with just saying, I don't know. And yet, when it comes to the origin of the universe or any other thing, because theists talk about the origin of life, they talk about the origin of the planet, they talk about fine tuning, whatever it may be that's your favorite. But right now you're talking about the Big Bang. In this instance, you don't just say, I don't know. You say, I do know, and it's magic. Why?
Oh, I see. Why?
Yeah, why would you do that?
Well, just because of like the claims that the Bible makes, I would say. But then I like,
okay.
And then I know we're gonna get into this, but maybe because I just think like there's an afterlife and there's an intelligent designer. But I'm not answering your question still. I'm trying to think of how I can answer it like without sounding like a
it's
fool.
Okay to say, it's okay to say that you don't know why you do that too. You can be honest. This is again not a gotcha. Like we're just asking you questions to try to understand why you think what you think.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't want to say. Well, I could just because I guess I just believe like what the Bible says, and that's why I think there's a God and like an intelligent designer. I guess that's my answer. Like,
if I can, like, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to keep just. That's a very different thing than what you just said a second ago, though. And I just want to draw attention to the fact that like the original question, you talked about why do you believe in a God? Well, because I don't know what happened before the Big Bang. Okay, why isn't it okay just to say I don't know? Well, because I believe in the Bible. And I feel like believing in the Bible would have been its own standalone reason. And I don't know why that came after. I have to say I have to assume that magic happened before the Big Bang because I believe in the Bible. That's a weird bridge to build.
Yeah.
It seems like you could have just said
I wasn't really trying to bring in like I wasn't really trying to bring in like a specific religion, but
yeah. Can I ask you a completely different question?
Sure.
And this, just because I feel like if I ask you why do you believe in the Bible, there'll be another aside, like, well, because of this other thing, or I had this, and on and on and on. I'd rather get to the heart of the issue and ask, do you care whether or not the things that you believe are true?
Yeah, I would say so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
if I'm being completely honest, yeah, of course.
Okay, cool. Eve, you had something?
I just had a quick follow-up question. Zach, how long have you been a theist? How long have you believed in a God? Did you grow up in a family that believes in God?
I did, but I didn't really listen to anything they had to say about it.
Sure. Yeah, I'm not going to hold that as I'm just getting a grid for where you're at. Anyway, sorry. Let me let Forrest continue with what he was going to ask.
Oh no, you're just fine. You're just fine. That's a really important point that actually will probably come up here in a second.
Yeah.
I just want to. So like, if you care what you believe is whether or not the things you believe are true, like, what is the best way that we have to verify and to check whether or not the things that we believe are true?
Well, we can observe, see, and measure with our senses.
Sure. That's one way. Senses aren't great, but they're a good start. Yeah.
Logic and reasoning.
So, yeah. Double checking, fact checking, verifying things. What about faith? Is faith a good way to know whether or not what you believe is true?
Well,
because that was the reason you called in.
Right.
Yeah, and that's where I'm going to say, well, I have faith in this, but someone has faith in that and could be wrong. I could have faith in this to be right. So
that wasn't his question. The question is that a good reason to? Is that a good way to find out if something is true or not?
I would say no.
Okay. Then why do you do it? If you care about what you believe being true, then why do you use what you even say is a bad way to come to the truth?
Well, maybe I'm missing something here, but you can have faith in something and be right.
You can.
And then
you absolutely can.
But based off of, previous instances, results, patterns that aren't guaranteed to happen in the future, like that don't stay consistent, right?
Well, so you can have faith in something and be correct, for sure. You can also have faith in something and be wrong. What's the difference between those two scenarios? If I believe in something and I'm right, or if I believe in something and I'm wrong, like, what am I doing differently as a believer in those two scenarios?
Not. Wait, let me think here.
I can give you a hint. It's nothing.
Sure.
It's absolutely nothing.
I'll take the hint.
So,
all right.
There's no difference. If I have faith in something that turns out to be true, or I have faith in something that turns out to be false, what I've done is the exact same thing in both scenarios. Now let's try something like, you don't have to do like hard science, right? You don't have to go, but just like the kind of like the scientific method you get in like an undergrad, but just kind of like, okay, I have this idea. I'm going to double check it. I'm going to do some fact checking. I'm going to do some digging. I'm going to gather some evidence. I'm going to come to a conclusion based on what I find. If I believe something that's right, and I've dug up into it, and I've looked for evidence for it, and I have a good reason to believe that thing, I've studied a little bit, I looked to some experts for it, whatever it may be, right? Or I believe something that's wrong. If I believe something that's wrong, and I have evidence for it, I've done something, I've messed up. Right? If I think there's evidence for this and this is wrong, well, I have bad evidence. I haven't done my job properly, right? I don't have a good reason to believe a thing. It's more likely that I don't have evidence, or I think that I do. I've been misled. So there's actually an active way that you can verify whether or not what you believe is true. And if you do it right, you'll believe a lot of true things, and you won't believe a lot of false things. And that's very, very different from faith, right? We can agree on that?
Yep.
Right. So if you believe, or if you care about whether or not the things that you believe are true, why would you ever rely on faith? Why wouldn't you be out here looking for evidence to support your God claim and checking to see if it's good evidence? Checking to see if it's verifiable, checking to see if it's not just anecdotal, if it's not just feelings and stories, if it actually has something that you can like measure and analyze. Why wouldn't you be doing all of those things? And why wouldn't you use the same kinds of systems of like quality check and quality control that you would for any other claim with this God claim?
Yeah, I see your point. But
my question for you, Zach, would also be, what's the difference between you deciding the God that you've picked and somebody who believes in a different God? How do you know that your faith was placed in the right place as opposed to them? Because it kind of sounds like you're just talking about gambling and you happen to pick the most familiar thing to gamble on.
Well, assuming that I was just raised in a Christian household and that's why I chose it. But if we're just looking at
that's not exactly what I'm saying. I'm trying to understand how you are sure that you've picked the correct God to believe in or have faith in, as opposed to somebody else who's picked a different God to have faith in.
Well, you can examine all the world religions and just and personally decide which one you think is more believable than others. Could have done that.
How do you think that you've examined every possible world religion or God claim? I know I haven't. There's so many. We don't even know how many.
Yeah.
There's like 2,000 different versions of like Christianity alone. Like there's so many options.
What if you missed the one that's actually even more what did you say? Whatever one sounds
believable.
believable? What if there's one that sounds even more believable than the one that you're believing in? What do you do now?
How would I know?
Right.
When I die.
So wasn't that too late?
Yeah. Are you gambling then? Are you just hoping you happen to hear the most believable argument for God and that you picked the right one?
Well, I don't want to get like too like theological and like supernatural here because I'm trying to keep it as like this argument.
I just want whatever your honest answer is. Yeah. If your reason for believing in a God is that you had a supernatural experience, then I want to hear that that's your reason. You know, that's all we're asking here is your reason.
Yeah, sure.
It's not like what's your best argument.
I guess just, you know, like let's see, a year ago, examining, I would say, a few religions or whatever, and dug into the scriptures of one, I would say I had like desires that were laid upon my heart that weren't there before reading it, and then inclined me to pursue it more. So I guess I would accredit it to, as because the Bible would describe that as a supernatural experience. So yeah, I guess that's what drew me to this one.
What you just described, I had that exact same supernatural experience when I like opened up like a new epigenetics textbook, and I was like, yo, this is some new stuff I've never heard of before, and I now have these new desires to explore this that I've never had before, and I'm really excited about it. And that's so like you got interested in something is what you just described.
Well, and what would you do if 20 years from now, after devoting your life to this God, you were to be introduced to another God claim, and they have another religious text that you'd never read before, and you read it, and it's the complete opposite of this other God you've believed in, and it goes against all of that, but you have that feeling again, but even more so. Would you now believe in this new God instead?
Well, honestly, I'll just be honest, probably not, right?
Okay.
Right.
But I don't know, like,
yeah.
I don't know what other religion would pop up in 20 years and like all this stuff. So I don't know. I don't know what would
there. You already said there's a bunch of them that you haven't even explored yet. So a new religion doesn't have to pop up.
Okay,
you can just hear about it for the first time.
That's true.
So that's the thing.
True,
What it sounds like you're saying, to me at least, and maybe you're saying something different. So correct me if I'm misinterpreting you here. But what it sounds like you're saying is that out of all these religions that are available to you, you happen to be born into the right one. And the more you study the one that you happen to be born into and grow up with, and that your parents taught you, and that your community believes in, and that you probably went to church or Sunday school or something like that as a child, and like were taught over and over and over, whenever you learned about that one, it just so happened to really resonate with you for whatever reason. Couldn't possibly be the fact that you spent your whole childhood being surrounded by it. For some reason, you have this thing resonating with you and giving you happy, warm, fuzzy feelings. And so now you've dug into it. And by your own admission, even if you explored another religion, you probably wouldn't change. Does that sound about like what you're saying? And if so, does that sound like something you would trust if I said that about anything else?
Yeah. Well, I guess I was raised in a community that was Christian. I did go to church, but I never really believed in it back then. You know, it wasn't until after I moved out until I...
Would you say that's probably the first God you ever heard about? Or one of the first ones?
Yeah, probably. Yeah, I would say so. But also, like, you know, going to public school was pretty secular. And there was, like, other religions there that people were feeding me. So I wouldn't say, like...
Right.
I was... like...
What's the difference? So you just said something so interesting to me. You said you were being fed religion. So what's the difference between being fed those other religions and, like, being fed Christianity?
Sorry, you cut out. Could you repeat that one more time?
Yeah, you said something interesting. You said that you were fed other religions in, like, public school and stuff. So what's the difference between being fed that and being fed Christianity? Because, again, it does seem like you just decided that's the one that's true for not a good reason, which to me, that's my definition of faith, is believing something with no good reason.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like, what's the difference between me being fed Christianity and then other people, like, feeding me other stuff? What was the
or a kid being
final part of
fed
that?
Islam.
Yeah.
I guess there is, like, no difference.
Right.
Yeah. So what it sounds like over and over here, Zach, is that you were raised in a culture that taught you about Christianity. You were exposed to other religions, but they weren't enforced, and they certainly weren't. You didn't have any of the same societal how do you say motivations to pursue those other religions. Your family didn't believe in any of those other religions, I'm going to guess. You weren't brought to the worship centers of those other religions. You weren't taught about the scriptures of those other religions. There was no social benefit for you being a member of those other religions, whereas there absolutely would have been a social benefit of you being a Christian, especially you live in Florida. I don't know if you grew up there, but like for sure you were going to be treated. Where did you grow up?
Midwest.
Okay, so a lot of the same, yeah. So I live in Oklahoma, which is the southern part of that, and so like we're like there's double-digit churches within walking distance of my house. If you're not a Christian here, you're a little bit ostracized, and if you are a Christian here, you have a great community that thinks you're a good person just immediately. And so you had a lot of social reasons to stay Christian and to study Christianity and to believe in the claims of Christianity. And the more you studied Christianity, I'm betting you felt more connected to your community, to your family, to your history, to the supernatural claims that you were taught as a child. It makes sense that these things would feel good to you and that you would feel compelled to continue being a part of them. And yet, we still end up exactly where we started, which is, why do you believe it? And is the reason that you believe it a good enough reason to believe absolutely anything else? And it sounds like you believe it because you want to believe it. And the reasons that you've given us so far in this call aren't good enough for any other claim ever. So why is it good enough for you here?
Even for you, you're saying you wouldn't believe anything else.
Yes.
Based on the reasons or the lack thereof that you've given us.
I know it sounds like that, but like in my head, I'm like, I don't think on this phone call I'm gonna like become an atheist. But like,
I don't think so either.
Yeah, we're not trying to do that.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. But I just still can't. Like, I know like the questions you're asking me, and I'm being like, I'm trying to be totally objective and honest. Like, what would I like that. Based off that single question? What would any like person answer with? Like, of course I'm going to say this, right? But I just still can't understand, rationalize, like the idea that there can't be intelligent design. And like, I kind of wanted to just, huh?
Have you tried?
Have I tried?
Have you given it a shot? Yeah. I'm serious.
Well, I've like,
you said you can't rationalize there not being an intelligent designer. Have you given it a shot?
Mm-hmm.
Have you looked into the way that like totally natural process, like take the Big Bang out of it for a second, like everything after the Big Bang, everything for the past 13.8 billion years, we have naturalistic explanations for every part of it. Like there's some stuff that we don't know every detail of, but there's not anything out there in the universe or here on Earth that we look at and we're like, I have no idea how this thing could have possibly come about. There's just zero reason for it at all. We may not have the whole puzzle put together yet, but we have a lot of pieces. We get more every day. So, like, have you explored any of that at all? And also, follow-up question. This is two questions at once. I'm sorry. But, like, have you explored it at all?
No, you're good.
And if we didn't have any of that, would that be a good enough reason to then say, okay, well, it's magic?
Yeah. Well, I haven't like opened up a science textbook since high school, but I have like I've watched like a lot of debates with like theists and atheists, and like
sure,
some of the arguments atheists give make sense, but some of the arguments that theists gives with their science, like with their science claims and their understanding of it and the evidence they show, they have good arguments too. So it's like, now I'm picking
Zach,
the best of.
I think if you really care about what is true or not and believing what's true or not, which you said, and I believe you when you say that, although it's not lining up with your current actions or beliefs right now. But if you're interested in that, instead of watching other people's arguments, I think it would be so cool for you to go explore a science textbook maybe, or like Forrest has some amazing videos about science. It's not about atheism, just
I have
about
some okay
science.
videos about science.
They're amazing because I was a Christian for 25 years and I was a creationist and I was homeschooled. So I believed that the earth was only 6,000 years old. I was like on the really extreme side of it. And I had never even pursued the idea that there was another option. And once I started as an adult becoming more educated, I still don't know even this much compared to Forrest, but suddenly I was like, oh my God, even with me not understanding so much of this, I completely misunderstood or just straight up didn't know so many things about our universe and what we know about it. And that really helped me find some answers that were bothering me even as a theist, even as a Christian. I love that you want to know things. I just want you to believe what's true instead of putting a Band-Aid over this blank space where you don't know something.
Fair. But now, like, creationism of what the Bible explains, and then 13, what did you say, Forrest? 13 point what?
13.8 billion years old. Is it 13.8 billion? That's how old the universe is.
An estimate, approximation, or
so? Do you want the quick answer or the right answer?
I'll take the right answer.
So I'll summarize. We're about 40 minutes in, and we have to move on. But like long story short, yeah, and it's okay. I'm not saying that to say anything shitty to you. I'm just saying like I'm yeah. I hope you do. I hope you do call back.
Yeah, this call has been great, Zach. This is not saying any. This is amazing. Yeah. We really appreciate your honesty.
Seriously. Long story short, there was this dude named Hubble, and he noticed that like all the galaxies were moving farther and farther apart from each other, and they kind of started thinking, okay, well, if they're moving farther and farther away, then like it seems like it would be reasonable that at one point they were kind of close together, and that's where we kind of started to get the idea of the Big Bang at the beginning. And now you can do this cool thing called Hubble's constant, where you can notice that the farther two things are away from each other in the universe, the faster they are moving apart. Which only makes sense if space itself is expanding. And in order to make sense of that in your brain, think about like raisin bread. If you make a loaf of or a bunch of bread dough and you put raisins in it and you put it in the oven, it starts rising up, right? So if there's two raisins that are close together, they're going to expand apart a little bit. If there's two raisins that are far apart, they're going to expand way faster because there's more bread between them that's expanding, right? And so because there's more space between two galaxies that are far apart, and the space itself is what's expanding, the farther two things are apart, the faster they're expanding away from each other. Really fucking cool, right? And so we can plot the distance between things versus the rate at which they're expanding on a line. We get on a graph, we get a remarkably straight line. The slope of that line makes a thing called Hubble's constant, and you can plot Hubble's constant against like the distance of you basically you can use this. I go over this on my channel if you want. You can come up with a constant, which is time. To distance divided by velocity, I believe, is time. If I remember right off the top of my head. And it's not like a particular time. It's the whole ass concept of time, because it's the time that it took for these things to move farther and farther away from each other. And the more data that we gather about the universe, the more we closely refine that constant and make it like we get more and more and more decimal places. And so if you look over the history of the past like 20 years, like the universe was like 14 billion years, and there's like actually it's like 13 and a half, actually it's like 13.8. And so like it's you know getting closer and closer and closer and closer to this like really finite accurate point, because we're getting more and more data about distant galaxies, and we're understanding how fast they're moving and where they're going and all these things, and that's allowing us to fine tune our mathematics. And this it's not something I talk about too often, so I don't remember the math off the top of my head exactly, but it's remarkably simple algebra. Check out, if you go to my channel, I've got a video about this guy named Kennedy, and he's got like this show called the Kennedy Report, and I go over the math on that. I'll find it right now and I'll put it in the chat in case you want to check it out.
Sure.
Yeah, 13.8 billion years old. That is, it's. I guess you could call it an estimate, but it's a very, very accurate one. It is just us measuring the expansion of the universe and working backwards and saying, okay, well, if it's expanded this much, and we know how speed and physics works, and we have no reason to believe that physics works differently over there than it does over here, then we can extrapolate the number 13.8 billion. And there's some reasons to get into weeds about that, which we don't have time for.
Yeah. All right. But for a fact, I know that the Earth is like 25 years old, though. That's how long I've been here for.
Exactly. Yes. And that's the thing. Why? That's a great question, actually. I know you're joking. I know you're being silly, but like for real, why do you know that the Earth is older than you?
Well, I don't know, honestly.
That's hard solipsism is what that is. It's like I can never know anything except for the fact that I exist. Yeah. And nothing can ever beat that. But like in reality, like for serious though, like you know that the Earth is older than you because you have evidence for it, right? You have people around you telling you. You have books and pictures and videotapes that are older than you. You have historical documents going back before there were pictures and videotapes, and like you have actual reasons to understand how old the Earth is, and it's more than 25. And so, like, it's the same thing with the universe. Because light has a finite speed. Eve, your mic's off. But because light has a finite speed. Sorry?
Those reasons aren't faith, too. It's a bunch of reasons,
exactly,
and they're good reasons. They're not just like, well, I have no reason to think this because there's nothing showing history before me. No, there's reasons.
Yeah. And so even like that's what's so important. Oh no, you're just fine. Because light has a finite speed, and the speed of light is about 186,000 miles per second. Because it is that finite speed and it never changes in a vacuum. Like light doesn't to have a speed limit sign that has to go in different speeds in different parts of the universe. It's always going at 186,000 miles per second. Because of that constant, we can measure a lot of things about the universe. That's the whole foundation of relativity. It's how we know what the universe is shaped like and how things move around and how time and space can dilate and like all sorts of mind-blowing shit about the world that you live in all comes from that fact. And one of the most cool things is that we can measure the light coming off of distant galaxies and tell how red shifted or blue shifted it is, and we can tell where they're going. And that allows us to build a picture, a model of the universe that we live in. And when you stand up and look around the universe that you live in, you learn that there's really no magic required.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate you guys. I want you guys to get to the next callers who have like other questions, but that's
Sure.
I'm thankful for your guys' time and stuff and your perspectives.
Thanks
it
so
was
much
really
for
interesting.
calling.
So
I think you're on a really cool
thank
track.
you for your time, dude.
But I will be calling in the future, though.
Please.
So, like,
good.
See what
and Zach,
because what's the topic? Oh, what? Sorry.
I have a show that I help host over here on the line on Tuesday nights called Chewed Gum, and we need more theist callers. I never get to talk with theists, and this has been such a lovely call. So now I'm like shamelessly promoting that show on Tuesday nights and saying, please call. I loved this conversation. We talk about all kinds of stuff. Mostly we talk about purity culture, but I'll take a call from a theist anytime.
I'd like
so
to call,
you're welcome.
I'm definitely calling into that.
Okay, great. Would love to talk to you again.
But all right.
All right.
Thanks for your guys' time. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Zach.
Have a good one.
Great day.
Thank you, Zach.
Yep.
Take care, dude. Bye. What a nice guy.
I really like Zach.
Dude's on an awesome journey right now, and like
he's only 25.
What gets me, what gets me, and I've talked about this before on the show, is that like the amount of atheists that I know who have that exact story of like, I was looking for evidence for God and I just didn't find any. And I wanted to know more about evidence to disprove evolution or the Big Bang. And I actually found a lot of evidence for this.
That was my story.
I tried, the more I tried to fill in these gaps, the further and further away I moved away from religion. And so like, I think like Zach, if I can be a prophet here and make a prediction, there's this, I think he's maybe a couple of years away from breaking those chains a little bit. Maybe faster. He sounds like a smart enough guy, so maybe faster.
Yeah, agreed.
And when that happens, you can all worship me because my predictions came true.
You can fill in the gap with Forrest.
Yes. Yeah, I was there, and it was exactly. We've got just so you guys know, we've got the Sunday show After Dark happening after this, and that's going to have Eric from Skeptics and Scoundrels and Matt Dillahunty on that one. We've also got immediately after the show is the promo of the new podcast. So stay tuned for that. You get a little snippet, a little preview of the podcast, my episode, and then stay tuned for After Dark Sunday show. Tomorrow we've got Skeptalk, where guess who's going to be on it? It's fucking me again, with my friend Morticia, who is a microbiologist, and so we're going to be talking about all sorts of cool biology things. So if you like nerding out about, if you like some nerdular nerdance, that's your time to tune into it. On Tuesday, you've got Chewed Gum, the show that you just heard about, where Eve and Alyssa are going to be back, hopefully talking to Zach. It's going to be great.
I know.
Wednesday, we've got the Hang Up, where Matt is going to be on with Will. Is it Judy? I'm not sure. But this person sounds cool. They're hanging out with Matt, so maybe they're nice. I don't know.
Will, did you say Will Judy? I was like spacing out for a second, but everybody should tune into that episode. I absolutely adore Will. It's going to be great. There you go.
Right on. I don't know this person. I'm excited to see them. TACIS is on Thursday with Arden and Josie, so check that one out. I follow both of them on Threads. And then next week, a week from today, we've got the Sunday show where Eric is going to be back with guess who? It's fucking me again, dude. And then we've got the Encore Sunday show, the Sunday show After Dark with Matt and Shannon. I'm going to watch that one for sure. Love those two.
Yeah.
So yeah. Check all of those shows out. They're lots of fun. And also make sure to join our Patreon so you can get a hold of that new podcast, what's coming out. It's going to be a wild, good time. I am looking at the call screen right now, and I'm particularly interested in hearing your thoughts on number 11. What are you thinking?
Let me see. Let me scroll down here. Yes, absolutely. Let's do it.
I feel like that's right up your alley, especially.
Great.
So we've got... We've got Brian, pronouns he, him, calling in from Man Nipples, or maybe Minnesota, as a theist who wants to explain why he believes in the Christian God. Brian, you are on the line. How are you doing today?
Good.
Hey, Brian.
Brian,
can I go ahead?
Yeah, what's your question?
It just says here,
or what did you want to say?
It just says here, wants to explain why they believe. So tell me whatever you want.
Okay. I think that, and I've listened to your first caller, I think that atheists, not to mention some religious people, like I think to some extent the guy you were just talking to, they misperceive the nature of religious belief. It seems to me that our God, specifically the Christian God, is taken on faith. In other words, it's simply assumed to be true, not proven based on evidence. In other words, people take the Christian God's existence as an article of faith, not by weighing the evidence and arguments for its existence. Now, that might seem irrational, it might seem dumb and unscientific, but many scientific and mathematical theories, and arguably all scientific and mathematical theories, are grounded in assumptions. In other words, for example, Einstein's theory of special relativity is based on what they usually call postulates, but that's just another word for assumptions. In addition, the geometry of Greek mathematician Euclid was based on axioms. Basically, Euclidean geometry is basically plane geometry. It's based on axioms, which, again, is just another word for assumptions. So religious belief is not based on evidence. It's based on just making assumptions. Now, the question then is, why would you do that? The reason you do that is because you simply think you'd benefit from it in some way. And, it seems to me that there are many different reasons why different people would do that. There's, all kinds of different reasons. One reason I think is beneficial is because you need a God to have objective morality. You cannot have, you can't have objective morality without a God, or at least something like a God concept. The problem that atheists have with morality is that, is what the Scottish philosopher David Hume said, that you can't get an ought from an is. That's one thing he said. He said, you cannot get an ought from an is. In other words, you can't get a moral prohibition or a moral requirement, simply from, facts.
Brian, I feel like we're getting, like, this is not a conversation at this point. You're just making like a billion different little points. So let's start somewhere. Yeah, let's start somewhere. And I feel like Forrest maybe can point us in a good direction. I'm eager to hear his response because I imagine where it's about to go. And let's go from there because you took it about a bunch of different places. Is that all right?
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, if you're okay with it, like just some of the things you said immediately, I don't want to. I'll be honest with you. I'm happy to talk about these things, but I'd rather talk about the Christian God in particular because, like, that's Eve's area of expertise, and I want to hear what she has to say about it because she'd be better equipped than me. Just what you said a second ago there kind of rubbed me the wrong way, though, because you compared the assumptions made in science, which, yeah, there are some things that we kind of, you could call them assumptions. In fact, sometimes we do too. Things like uniformitarianism. The same laws of nature apply everywhere. That's something that I talked about in the last call, right? That was brought up by, since the foundation of especially geology, is that, like, all right, there aren't special rules for rocks in this part of the world than there are for this part of the world. And now we say there aren't, special laws of physics in Andromeda than there are in the Milky Way. The laws of physics are the laws of physics. The laws of chemistry are the laws of chemistry. These things apply all over the place. That's uniformitarianism. And you could call that an assumption. In fact, a lot of times we do. But we don't use that word the same way that we would use the word in terms of religion. Whereas to say, I'm assuming this God, or I'm assuming the supernatural, I'm assuming, which is necessarily something without evidence. So, like, uniformitarianism, we have yet to find a single thing that doesn't obey the same laws of physics, no matter where we look. So that kind of assumption is reasonable and expected. And until we find something that changes that, it makes sense to keep going with this because it's working great. The reason why you're able to call us on the internet right now is because of those types of assumptions. But when we talk about that and compare it to a God claim, and then you start into this new conversation of we can't have objective reality without a God, that's a totally different assumption. That's like using the word theory to mean evolution on one hand and I think I know where my sock went in the dryer on the other hand. Like that's very different uses of the word theory. One is scientific and one is colloquial. And what you're doing is you're conflating a scientific and a colloquial use of the word assumption to try to prop up your worldview to the level of a scientific one. And I don't think that's reasonable. I'll let you respond to that. But beyond that, I don't, like I said, I don't think this is a productive use of this conversation. I'd rather hear about your Christian God. So respond to what I said, and then we'll move to the next thing.
Well, first of all, I think that is, I think my Christian, I think I am talking about the Christian God. I think the Christian God is taken on faith. This is something talked about in the Bible, talked about by Jesus. The people who, there's some people who saw Jesus in person. He maybe cured their diseases or whatnot, so they didn't have to take him on faith. But there's other people, that it talks about in the Bible who didn't see Jesus, but he's taken on faith. So that is, to me, that is a concept in the Bible, and I don't think fundamentally.
Why should we care?
I just don't. Wait, what?
Why should we care about what the Bible's saying? I'm asking you the same question that I would ask if somebody that worships the Muslim God was telling me about the Quran. Like, why should I care?
Well, you specifically don't have to, but the reason I would is
why have you
simply
chosen
because I believe that believing in the Christian God is simply beneficial to me.
So, okay, you believe that it's beneficial to believe it. Got it. There are people that believe in other gods that think it's beneficial for them to believe in those gods. So are you all right? Or are you the only one that's right? And why are they wrong?
I don't think that they're necessarily wrong. They've chosen to believe it because they think they benefit from their beliefs.
Does that make it true?
Within their worldview, it does make it true for them.
Does it make that
likewise,
God exist? So does it make whatever God, like, because it makes you feel better, does that make that God exist?
Well, yes, effectively, yes.
But what about gods that claim that there are no other gods? So then you have you believing in this God, or whoever, somebody believing in a God that says there are no other gods, and somebody else over here believing in a God that says there's no other gods, and these are two separate gods that these two people are believing in, but they both think it's beneficial to them to believe in these two separate gods that claim there are no other gods. So which one is true?
Well, if
or are there actually no gods? Maybe you don't actually believe in a God. Maybe you just, or you do, but you believe that it's not real. You just think it's good to believe it, even though it's not real. I'm trying to understand.
Well, if there's another God that argues that the Christian God doesn't exist, then I simply don't believe in that God.
Okay, I hear you, but what about the person that believes in that God? I'm asking, what's the difference between you believing in this God that says there's no other gods and somebody believing in another God that says there's no other gods?
Well, that person has chosen to believe in that God, and I've chosen to believe in this God.
Okay, but which of you is right?
Well, I'm right. I believe I'm right.
How do you know that?
I've chosen to believe that.
Does choosing to believe something make it true?
Well, look, but as I was saying, I don't believe that.
I would love it if you'd answer her question.
Well, I'm trying to answer it. I'm trying to say I think you and I have a different understanding of what belief is.
Excuse me, Brian. The answer to her question would be a yes or a no. You don't have to explain what you were talking about. She asked you, does wanting and choosing to believe in something make it true?
Yes.
Okay, I choose to believe right now that Forrest is a unicorn. Is Forrest a unicorn? I wish it worked like that. That would be so cool.
Yes, say yes, say yes, say yes, say yes.
If based on your definitions and in your worldview you believe that, I would say yes.
So you
explain that. So Forrest is a unicorn now, because I chose to believe that.
Well, yeah. I mean, you can believe whatever you want. So, yeah,
you can believe whatever you want. How do you figure out if it's true or not?
Well, I think that okay. I mean, I wouldn't believe that just because it doesn't make sense. And what I'm saying is, I don't believe something like that.
But that wasn't my question.
It's true because she chose to believe it. So don't you want to believe it because it's true? She chose to believe it. That makes it true, right?
For her, yes. But
what is anything actually real then, Brian? Is there any you brought up objectivity. Is anything objectively real or true?
Well, but again,
or are we all just making up our own worlds?
But again, as I pointed out, Einstein's theory of special
you didn't answer my
relativity.
question.
That's not.
Can you answer my question, Brian? Is anything true? Is anything real? Is there any kind of objectivity to this, or are we all just making up whatever we want?
I think that there's objective. Yes, I think that there's things that are true and objective. But I don't think we can as human beings fully understand the world around us. We can't. We have to make some sort of assumptions about the world and go with those things. And for us, those things end up having to be true, because of our limitations, it seems to me.
I have two questions, if it's okay. You did just kind of answer this a minute ago, but it flew in the face of everything else you've said for the rest of the call. You just said a second ago that you do believe that there are some objective truths about the universe, that there is objective reality. But that's very different from what you just said a moment ago when Eve asked if I was a unicorn, and you said if you believe it, then he is, and that's true for you. I don't understand what true for you means. If I believe that I can fly and I jump off of a building, will I fly or will I plummet to my death?
Yeah. I mean, that's a good question.
I'd like an answer to it then.
Okay. Ask that again, please.
So you weren't listening in the first place. Cool. I'll ask again. Well, yes. So if I believe with my whole heart that I can fly like Superman and I jump off of the Empire State Building, will I fly because I believe it, therefore it's true, or will I fall to my death because gravity is objectively real, no matter what I believe?
I believe that you will fall and die. That's based on my understanding of the world.
So then we can agree.
What will happen,
we can agree then. We can agree that there are objective facts about reality and that there's no such thing as true for you. Something's either true or it isn't. Is that correct? Or do you think that's different?
Yes. There are things that are true, objectively true. Yeah. I'll say yeah.
Okay, great. So then we'll go back and ask again, am I a unicorn no matter how many people believe it? Or am I a human being? Because that's objective reality.
Okay, so it seems to me, strictly speaking, there's an objective answer to it based on the definitions you would impose.
There's a literal
but I don't know the answer.
Okay, can I try
to... You don't know whether
I'm
a human or a unicorn, is what you're saying. You do not know. You cannot assess at this moment whether I am a human being or a unicorn.
I can tell you whether I believe
actually saying.
You are... I can tell you whether
I'm not asking what you
believe.
I'm asking, can you, Brian, assess right now, just by your ears and eyes alone, whether the person speaking to you is a magical horse with a horn or a person?
I can make an assessment based on my understanding of talking to you and so forth, but that's based on my understanding of the world.
Okay, so Brian, I have a question. Is it an objective fact that the Christian God exists?
Weird that it takes that long to answer.
You would say yes. So why? How do you know that?
It seems to me that it's based on my assumptions, ultimately. It's based on my assumptions.
A God objectively exists because you, Brian, in 2024, happen to assume he does.
Yes.
Is that a good reason to believe that?
Yes.
Why?
I think, but as I was saying, it seems to me all beliefs are ultimately based on some sort of assumptions,
But Brian, what if you picked the wrong God? What if there is a God and it hates the God that you chose, and it's going to punish you for all of eternity because you picked the wrong God, because you just decided to believe in that one? How do you make sure you get it right?
I don't think there is a way to make sure that you get it right. You have to do the best you can based on what you know. And one of the things that Christianity advocates is learning as much as you can. Proverbs says that, so I try to learn as much as I can.
It also advocates for not leaning on your own understanding at all and basically being brain dead and becoming a robot and letting you become the mind of Christ. So it says a lot of things.
Right.
Yeah, I think it sounds like there's not a good reason. It sounds like very similar to our previous caller, actually. You happen to believe in this God. You think it does better things for your life. I wonder if there's some other God, or not believing in a God, if maybe your life would be even better then. Like, how would you even measure that, if that's a good reason to believe something or not? So I'm just not hearing any actual reason for believing other than like you just decided to. Is that a fair assessment?
Well, again, it seems to me that it's beneficial to believe in a religion. I think it's beneficial to believe in Christianity. I mean, I don't.
Is it beneficial to believe in Christianity?
It seems to me that you can only get objectivity. As I was saying, you can only get some sort of objective beliefs based on some God, right?
I have multiple questions.
Yeah, let's hear what
you just said. Yeah, I just want to. I have two big ones, but like you just threw another whole wrench in what I was gonna say. But you just said, we'll start here. You just said that you think that it's beneficial to believe in Christianity. That's what you just said, right?
Yes.
How beneficial is it for women and LGBT people?
Well, that's just the question. How beneficial it is for them. I think, and I know what you're saying, and what you're getting at. There's some, passages in the Old Testament. It'd be
great if you just answered my question instead of giving me 30 minutes of why you're going to answer the question someday. Just an answer would be great.
Okay. Is it? I would say yes. Yes, it is.
Neat. Eve, any follow-ups on that one?
Yeah. We'll get to that part in a second, actually, because was it beneficial to the people during the Crusades that were killed for not converting? Was that beneficial that people believed in the Christian God?
Well, of course. If they believed, they wouldn't have been murdered.
Right. Yeah, I guess at knife point, that would have been a good reason. But do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. Also, what about when during the times when they would enslave other humans here in the States, and they would make Bibles, slave Bibles, they were called that. And they used that belief in a God to try to maintain control over fellow human beings.
All that part from the New Testament
in the Christian God? Yeah.
Where Jesus says, slaves, obey your masters, especially your Christian masters, so you can partake in their part of heaven and all that.
And what about every day when I get comments from Christians telling me, quoting Timothy, whatever that verse is in Timothy, telling me that I shouldn't speak because I'm a woman? Is that beneficial to me? Is that faith beneficial?
It seems to me that that part of the Bible is not spoken directly by Jesus. I tend to take a reductive
of course.
Cool. Okay, so what I have so let's talk about Jesus. So when I was in an abusive relationship and I was told to turn the other cheek, was that a beneficial Christian belief for me to have? And then it made me stay in an abusive relationship for years. And I almost lost my life because of it. So was that beneficial?
I think properly interpreted, I think a passage like that is
Damn, I wish I had a better interpreter around when that verse was given to me.
Yeah. Damn.
So it seems objectively it's not beneficial, like as this blanket belief. Maybe if you conform it just perfectly, just right, and you take what you want out of it and you cherry pick it and create a beautiful bouquet, which you can do. You can pick some really cool things. You have to leave out a lot. So would it be a good idea to just hand somebody a Bible and say, you should just straight up go with all of this?
The Bible never says to take itself literally. It never says that the entirety of let's say the Protestant Bible is all a direct command. But it seems to me that it's a fairly accurate rendition of history. That's the way I tend to take
except
the Bible.
for all the parts that
where
are obviously
just
historically
not.
inaccurate. Yeah, that's neat.
Such as
like nobody actually wandered around in a desert for 40 years because there's zero archaeological evidence for that whatsoever, and it was a massive amount of people. The claim was.
Yeah. Also, a pharaoh and like the entire army of Egypt was never drowned in the Red Sea.
Right.
Well, I mean, it's hard to know whether those things occurred or not. I don't.
It's not hard to know
Is
whether or not
it?
a global flood happened.
Yeah, we would know that.
There would be pretty good evidence for all of these things. Especially a global flood would be like one that we'd have a ton of evidence for.
Yeah, well, look, I think it's pretty. I think you have to take the Bible with a little common sense. Like
where do you get that common sense from, Brian? Where do you get that common sense from?
Where do I get the common sense from? From reading, thinking carefully. My knowledge of the world. Taking the Bible, reading it carefully and taking the whole part of it and applying, skeptical thought, which is something that the Bible advocates.
And where do you think you got the ability to think that way? Do you think it came from God? Because you implied objective thought or morality has to come from God. So do you think your ability to think that way came from God?
Ultimately, yes.
Okay, so God decided to make a book that requires you to have to leave a bunch of shit out of it to properly understand him. In fact, if you actually follow a lot of the shit, then you're going to get in big trouble and be going against moral code. Because do you think that it would be moral to own a slave right now? I'm going to go ahead and guess that you don't think it would be. You sound like a decent person.
No. Let him answer. Brian. Is slavery moral?
No, I don't.
Cool.
No,
so you're having to actively go against teachings supposedly came out of the mouth of this God, and you're having to use supposedly the brain he gave you to undo that. It doesn't make any sense.
Where in the Bible does it say that slavery is morally correct?
Well, God gives
several times actually.
Tons of laws that he tells his people that they can use. Hey, if you're gonna have a slave, this is how you can treat him. This is what you can do. There's like a lot of that.
Exodus gives like specific rules on like where to buy slaves from, how much to pay for them, how to beat them properly, like how to keep it. If they're a Hebrew slave, you do XYZ thing, and then they can be your slave forever. If it's non-Hebrew slave, they're your property that you can pass down to your children. It's really clearly written out.
Also, Jesus talks about it too. And you would think that if Jesus had the foresight of a God, he would be like, you know what? This slavery issue is not only a big deal now, it's going to continue to be. And it's going to be awful. Mm-hmm. I should say something because Brian is loving that I say stuff about turning the other cheek and sell your things to the poor. So maybe people like Brian will listen to me, and I should say, also don't own other human beings. But he didn't say that. So how is that a beneficial, back to what you said, this is beneficial objectively for people to believe? It seems not, unless you maybe want to own slaves.
Well, you're kind of assuming, I think, that he didn't say that because keep in mind that the Bible doesn't
Well, he
necessarily...
didn't find a way to let us know if he did. It's not...
Okay.
You would think that would be a really important piece of information.
He mentions not eating shellfish like 12 fucking times, but he couldn't find the time to be like, also, human beings aren't farming equipment and you shouldn't treat them as such. Like,
wait a minute, Jesus
where are
said
this
not
dude's
to eat
priorities?
shellfish?
I think Forrest is saying that God says that.
The God of the Bible, yes, just
and supposedly Jesus and God are pretty close, so you would think they'd be in cahoots on
the same guy in
actually
3 persons or whatever.
Yeah, I actually don't believe that specific belief because it's not in the Bible, but that's another issue.
So, okay, so you don't believe in the God of the Old Testament. You just believe in Jesus, who claims to have been the son of the God of the Old Testament. I didn't say anything about the Trinity. Supposedly, Jesus and God are actively working together. Jesus says that he's the fulfillment of the prophecy, which is God from over in the Old Testament. So you kind of have to take that Old Testament. Yeah, go ahead, Forrest.
Yeah, I was just going to follow it up and just say, doesn't he say, like, I'm not come to change the law, but to fulfill it? Like, I'm here for everything that happened in the Old Testament, everything God said, I am the embodiment of, and I am here to fulfill that truth. So, like, if God said in the Old Testament that if you trim the sides of your hair and beard, you're sinful and going to hell, God said in the Old Testament that a woman who's menstruating shouldn't go into churches. God in the Old Testament said that what was another one? That if 2 men are fighting and a woman tries to break them up and accidentally touches one of their penises, they have to cut off their hands. Like, that's Jesus was about that, dude. So, like, I'm sorry, you can't separate this.
I don't remember that part of the Bible. So
you should go reread it. It's really interesting. Yeah, especially if you are claiming that this is beneficial for everyone to believe.
Well, I have read the Bible.
Sure.
I mean, I think some of the things are possibly either we don't understand them or they're things that, some of them we don't necessarily understand. Other things aren't necessarily still applicable. And other things, I think particularly the Genesis is just, okay.
So you made the claim that Christianity provides objective morality, but you're using subjectivity, like I think we all do, to go through the Bible and say, this thing is moral, this thing is not, this makes sense. You're not using the Bible as your moral standard. You are using common sense, like you said, which I think is great. And thank God you're doing that, no pun intended, because you are getting rid of some of those really awful beliefs that do not need to be continued 2,000 years later. So you are essentially better than the belief you claim is beneficial for all. You seem to be more kind and more empathetic and have more common sense than the religion that you think is objectively moral.
Well, I think if you look at what, the way Jesus lived his life and the things he said, I think those are pretty consistent with what I believe.
No, it isn't. Jesus said slaves should obey their masters.
Well, okay, but he's talking about the slaves, talking about people in that situation. He's not saying
and they should obey their masters.
Right.
Is that good advice? Why not say masters, free your slaves, don't own other human beings? Why did he take that time to say, hey, be a better victim? Why didn't he say, hey, stop fucking oppressing people?
I think effectively he did. I mean,
he didn't. He literally didn't. There's no effectively.
He did the exact opposite of that. How do you square that circle, Brian? How does somebody say slaves need to obey and you hear slaves should be free? How does that work? That's some 1984 shit, dude.
Right, but he's talking to the slaves. He's saying, hey, if you're in a bad situation, he's essentially, if you're in a bad situation, make the best of it in that, when you're in that situation. And I think that's
obeying and being beaten is making the best of a bad situation, according to you.
In some situations, yes.
So the dude couldn't open the other half of his mouth and say, hey, don't own humans as property. But he could say, obey. Obey the people who own you and beat you. And then 2,000 years later, some dude named Brian will know that what I really meant was just try to make the best of shit. Yeah, life gets you down. You get enslaved. Just try to keep a smile on.
But again, you don't know if he didn't say that. Remember, the Bible isn't necessarily an exhaustive...
Right, Brian.
Well,
You're right. And that is why I know
that he...
That's why I know that Jesus was all about anal fisting, because I don't know that he didn't talk about it. I have no evidence to believe that he didn't talk about it, and that's why I believe, because the Bible doesn't say so, that Jesus is all about fisting.
Right, but what he did say is love your neighbor as yourself. That's what he did say.
And that's wonderful. And that
why
makes
didn't he
sense.
say love your slave?
Yeah.
God.
But again, I think he may have
Brian, you're doing what I said. Brian, you're doing what I said. You're just picking and choosing the few parts of the Bible that sound nice, which I can go find in a million other books. I can recommend some books about being a loving and kind person to you if you want, that have nothing to do with the Bible, and they offer much better insight, and they also don't tell you to be a good slave. So that we can get there. But you are better than this religion. Like, as we're talking about it, you are subjectively looking at it and picking and choosing. There's no objective morality to this faith.
I wouldn't. I guess I disagree with that to some extent. It seems to me that there's some things stated in the Bible, pretty clearly. Like I said, love your neighbor as yourself. I think that's stated
I can be better than the Bible right now. I can go right down, love your neighbor as yourself, and don't own other people as slaves. And wow, suddenly, I am more moral than the Bible.
Okay, yeah, if you want to start another religion, go ahead, and maybe you could start a better religion, in practice. Maybe that's possible.
Then Brian, why do you need religion then?
If you already point, dude?
Yeah, if you're already better than that religion, then maybe it's holding you back.
It sounds like, Brian, you are not a good person because of your religion. You're a good person in spite of it. You are going out of your way to justify and excuse away and make up stories about your religion in order to make it fit with your modern secular morality. And all of this comes from the beginning of the call when you said that something can be true because you just believe it and therefore it is. So you've decided that you're right. You've decided that God is moral. And now no matter what awful, evil shit the Bible says, your answer is, well, you can't prove that he didn't say something good, and I think he probably did. Therefore, objective morality bends to my will, and this is what happened. Does that sound reasonable to you?
Well, you're leaving out the fact that you can. One advantage of like joining Christianity is that there's other people who kind of are already in that tradition, and
nobody's saying there aren't benefits to being in religion.
Unless you're a homosexual and you get thrown on the pyre to burn witches, then it's not really a benefit. But like for everybody else, sure, yeah. For all the straight white Christian males, it's great. If you're straight and cisgender and white, you're gonna have a great time in Christianity.
Yep, and any benefits that you can find, Brian, any benefits that you can find within Christianity, you can find outside of it, minus all the bigotry and like just nonsensical anti-science.
It's possible. Yeah, it's possible.
Let's prove it.
It's not just possible. We're doing it.
It's true. So I challenge you then. Can you give me one example of a good moral benefit that you cannot get outside of Christianity? A good thing that you can do or say or think that I or Eve as atheists cannot?
Well, I would say that you could come up with your own, essentially your own religion. Let's say you throw out the part about...
I would say that you should answer the question.
Well, the answer is no, effectively.
Right. So now follow-up question, Brian. Can you think of any bad, evil things that a Christian would do that Eve or I as atheists would not do?
And they would be justified in doing so according to their religious text.
Yes. Is something bad that they would do?
Yes.
Is there
what
something
is a bad
that a
thing?
Christian could do and back it up with the Bible that Forrest and I would not do?
I don't know what you wouldn't do. I'm not sure what you wouldn't do.
I wouldn't have
okay,
fucking
that you
slaves.
wouldn't do. Let's say what you wouldn't do, Brian.
Oh, okay. So you're asking me something that I wouldn't do?
That a Christian could do and justify it using your religious text.
Something that I could do and justify it using my
I can
religious
rephrase
text.
What is something that a Christian could do and they could justify it using the Bible that you would consider immoral? You already answered this earlier. You told us that owning people is immoral. So,
yeah.
And a Christian could easily and historically have done that.
Yep.
Yes.
Right.
And we can make a list as long as your arm, dude. There's slavery, the Crusades, killing homosexuals, slaughtering non-believers for any the Inquisition, mass torture, forced conversions, colonialism. Like, there's a manifest destiny. There's a million examples of horrific shit that people have done throughout history because they believed the Bible compelled them to do so, that you would never, ever do without that belief, without that baggage. So to get back to Eve's question a minute ago that you dodged just like all the other questions, why not just construct your own morality, your own system without the baggage of this religion? Why not accept that you can be a good person without any of that?
Because, again, objective morality requires at least some sort of God belief. It just requires that. Now, I don't think you necessarily have Christianity.
We just established that you're not using objective morality.
I'm not using objective morality.
You are subjectively picking and choosing which parts of your religious text to follow.
I would say that what I'm doing is reading the whole thing and coming to an understanding of what it's saying, based on a careful reading and a reading of it in context and so forth.
And do you think there's no subjectivity involved in that?
Which question should I have there?
Sorry, no, you go first.
Do you think that there's no subjectivity involved in that process you just mentioned?
I think there's probably some subjectivity, yeah.
It's all subjectivity.
Yeah. There's definitely subjectivity. There's nothing perfect about it.
Right. So you don't follow objective morality. As I said earlier, thankfully you don't, because if you objectively followed the Bible, you would be wanted in most countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So my point again is that I think you are a better person than this faith that you are following. And you're having to dismiss massive amounts of the teachings of this faith in order to continue being the decent human being that it seems you are.
I disagree with that.
That's not beneficial. You're saying this is a beneficial belief to have, and I don't think it's beneficial to believe something where you are required to cut around most of it in order for it to even be legal.
I don't think that there's anything that Jesus said that I don't believe. I think, what he said is...
Yes, there is. We've talked about it a few times.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like we've hit a wall here, Brian. I've got more questions, but frankly, I don't think they're going to get us anywhere. Because, not 20 minutes ago, you told me that you couldn't objectively determine whether or not I was a fucking magic horse. So I'm going to move on to the next call. But
Brian,
I hope you go back.
Yeah,
Sorry,
go back
ahead.
and listen to the call. I was going to say, it sounds like the same thing as you. Go back and listen to this call, and maybe you said something that you didn't mean, or maybe you'll change your mind about something. Who knows? Call back after you listen to it, and maybe you'll have established a little bit of a better answer for some of these questions that we had for you. And I'd love to talk to you again.
That's very possible. I'm not good at thinking on my feet, so maybe I'll read it, listen to it again and come up with better answers.
Sounds bad.
Well, and they don't do better. I just would rather hear like the truth, like what you really think and why you think it and all that. So call back sometime. Would love to talk more. Thanks for chatting with us.
Okay, thanks for taking.
All right. What a show.
Very similar to the first call, actually, like in some ways. It just
in some ways, only the first call was honest and self-reflective.
Exactly. That's the difference.
Like I can't handle the state. Like the one thing that I didn't get to ask that it wouldn't have helped, because like we asked the same question 30 different ways and it didn't get anywhere. It's like, okay, you believe Jesus is real. I don't. Which one of us is able to shape reality based on our belief?
Right.
Or can we agree that beliefs don't shape reality? Also, whenever you said that I'm a unicorn and he was like, yeah, maybe, and like all that, the person in the chat who put new persona unlocked, I had to try so hard to keep it together. Fuck you. Glad you're here.
That's amazing.
Great.
We need to get you like a little unicorn headband now or something.
I was gonna say, if we get to like 1,000 patrons, they'll start the what was it, the Christian movie show. 2,000 patrons, and they start the other one, the D&D thing. 3,000 patrons, I'll buy a unicorn costume
and Jimmy
do a whole show.
Forrest, not Jimmy. We should make Jimmy do it too.
Same.
Honestly,
yes, we should all be unicorns because we believe we are.
If we could get
no one can prove.
Dress like a unicorn.
Oh my god,
wow.
dude. It'd be great. It'd be great. We've got a few other people. I feel like line number 19 kind of flows well after that one. I also am interested in line number 6, but it would just be a lot of me talking. So I'm curious to know like which one, if you're interested in either one.
Yeah, I think you're right. 19 would potentially. Who knows where this will go, along. But potentially could follow along. We'll see.
Let's see what happens. Yeah. All right. So we're going to move over to Elijah, pronouns he, him, calling in from Tall Xenophobes. What? From Texas, who says that objective morality proves that God exists. Elijah, you are on the line. How are you doing today?
Oh, well, now that I get to smoke my pipe after work, I'm much more pleasant mood.
Sounds nice. Okay, so yes. This is what I've got here is objective morality proves that God exists. What's up with that? Like, build on that, because we kind of just talked about that for a minute.
Yeah.
And I feel like maybe there's some context.
So in the spirit of gentleness, real quick, Brian jammed himself by making one claim and then trying to out-Pete himself on another front. So you said something that caught my interest. So I'm dating a black woman, right? And so my great-grandfather, well, actually 2 greats, who fought in the Confederacy, would not have approved of such a thing. And so I would say, and he would probably say he was a good person. Now, you said, why don't we all make our own morality and be decent people? So I would ask, what is your basis for decency? How do you define what's decent, what's not?
Oh, Forrest, I think you're muted.
Fuck, sorry. I was muted for a while.
You're fine.
Yeah. So I actually do have a more or less objective standard for morality, which is like human well-being.
All right.
And I can extend that to like well-being of like all conscious creatures. There's no way to be immoral to a rock, but you can use a rock for immoral purposes. You know what I mean? And so
I would concur 100%.
Yeah. So like I know what like it takes to hurt a person and to make a person happy.
Right.
I know what it feels like to be happy or sad. I also understand that I'm not the only person in the room, and I'm certainly not the most important one. I'm very much a nihilist, and so I don't think that my life is that special. And so for me, I base a lot of my moral thinking into. Well, that's kind of you, but I really I don't think that I'm special at all. And so I base a lot of my morality in taking myself off of a pedestal and saying, okay, everybody else around me is a thinking, cognitive person, and I don't want to make them sad. And so if I shoot somebody, they're not going to be happy. It's going to hurt their body. It's going to hurt their mind. It's going to hurt their family. It's going to hurt a lot of people. And I have no right to do such a thing. So therefore, murder's off the table. You know what I mean?
Well, so let me ask this then. So I'm a huge World War II buff, by the way, just as a segue into this. And I'm also a huge fan of Japanese culture. So, for example, Japan's actions in World War II, I don't know if this word will get you canceled, so apologize if YouTube demonetizes this. But they raped and pillaged and murdered their race.
About it.
Yeah.
Oh, rape.
Yeah,
okay, you can talk about that. Yeah. Dude, I was so ready for you to drop a racial slur and for me to drop you the call.
Oh, no. Oh, no,
the hell of a setup. Go on.
My future wife, my future wife would not be pleased. So I say that. So they raped and pillaged their murder all through China, right? We all know about the Neptune massacre. So in their culture, their emperor was the incarnation of what they believe was the sun god, and all things done in the advancement of the empire and the emperor was a good thing. They would say that they are decent people because they have honor and they are doing what's right. Now, you and I obviously would disagree with such a sentiment, but they would say, I am putting myself aside in the interest of someone besides myself, and this is a good thing. I'm building the empire the way I've been dictated to. You would disagree. And I'm saying, why should I believe your opinion over Mr. Tojo? Like, what gives you the moral ground to condemn Tojo? Because he would say,
so the significant difference there.
He would say, in my worldview, I'm a good person.
So the difference here is that these Japanese nationalists who are butchering their way across China have a very clear us versus them morality, where everybody within my ethnic group is the actual humans and everybody outside of it isn't. You can relate that back to just about any other genocide throughout history. Is that when you set people apart into different groups and say these are the important ones, those aren't.
Can understand that. I was saying but I'm asking though, if we say, why don't we build our own morality? I have no grounds to condemn Mr. Tojo because he did exactly that.
Well, what was I saying? You can build a morality and still do it wrong. I'm not saying that every morality is equal. I'm saying that you don't need the Bible to build a good morality. That was the point of the last.
Yeah, part. I'm more interested in your in what it said in the call notes, that you are saying objective morality proves God. So let's move on from all these different examples. Hopefully, in general, we're going to end up agreeing on a lot of what's moral and immoral. And but what I'm wanting to ask you is, so let's go with. You agreed. Let's go with Forrest's example that objective morality, we can say that harming a human is just objectively wrong, causing harm to other people.
No.
Things get dicey because sometimes you have to harm somebody in order to save other people.
Yeah.
Right. Of course. So that's where I'm going to agree with you on that, which there has to be nuance to it, which is why I can't get fully on board this whole super objective thing. But my question is, how does that prove a God?
Right. Well, because if you admit yourself that your standard, then you can't hold me to your standard because it's your standard.
Say that again.
Simple. If you admit your standard is your standard, you cannot hold me accountable to it because it's yours. It belongs to you, but it's not imposed upon me. Now, you can tell me, I think this will be really good, but I don't believe you can impose, because you're admitting that your worldview is arbitrary.
People get away with harming other people all the time.
Okay, but what makes that wrong?
Sure
what are you rooting that in?
What was that?
What are you rooting that idea in? What's the basis, the foundation? Is what I'm trying to say.
The foundation of what? That people are harmed and other people get away with harming them?
I'm saying I agree it's wrong to harm people, but I'm saying, why is it wrong to harm people? I have a reason, but you're saying I believe it's wrong to harm people, therefore it is. And my whole point was Empire of Japan didn't see it that way. You're disagreeing, so why should I side with you over and against them?
So it sounds like you're asking, what is the objective standard by which I can base the statement that it's wrong to hurt a person? And I already answered that. It's human health and well-being. Now, of course, as Eve pointed out, there is nuance there. If I see somebody trying to hurt somebody else, I might hurt that person to stop them from hurting other people. If someone's trying to kill me, I'm going to kill them first. And so like that's there's a little wiggle room in there. But overall, there's no absolute black and white pretty much anywhere. But more often than not, I can say,
except for what you decide. Except for what you decide, though, right?
Not really. I can say that there are certain times where you kind of walk in a gray area, and what you're doing is morally ambiguous, and like you're doing maybe a bad thing for a good reason, or a good thing for a bad reason.
Let me ask this question let me ask this question then. That morally gray area, would you say then the United States wiping out 200,000 to 300,000 innocent people for the end goal of ending that war? Would you say that it's morally a acceptable thing to kill innocent people if it's in the service of the greater good?
No.
Because
but this isn't a call about politics, is it?
Here's the problem. I think we're getting off track. So I'm trying to understand, because we could talk about morality for like hours and hours and hours, and the three of us are each going to probably have very different views. But Elijah, what I'm asking is, if I can finish my sentence, what I'm asking you is how does objective morality, if that exists, how does that prove a God? Because that's what you said.
Because if we're admitting that our standards can be wrong, we have to root it in something outside of ourselves that's objective.
I think we're just admitting that sometimes there can be a lesser wanted outcome, and we kind of agree as a society what those outcomes are that we want or don't want.
So the society,
which is why in some societies women get to walk around without any clothes on, and it's perceived as being totally fine. It's not a big deal. And then in some places that would be considered maybe a wrong thing to do. So I'm trying to understand how, like, without getting into the weeds of morality, I'm asking you, how do we prove a God based on objective morality?
Right. Because you are presupposing his stand-up by saying this is right and this is wrong, but you admit yourself.
No, you are presupposing the existence of a God. No. If you listen to me, then we can actually have this conversation, but you have to stop talking long enough to hear what I'm going to say, and then we can move forward. And I'm happy to let you answer the question. I'll give you lots of time. So you are jumping to the conclusion that there is a God holding people accountable to this objective standard. Where is your evidence of that?
Because you live as though that's true, Mr. Eden.
Do I? Because a lot of people don't.
Well, do you live with moral restraint? Do you two live with moral restraint?
No, I'm not going to. I don't think I'm going to say that, actually, because we haven't decided what we agree on is moral or not. I'm asking you again.
Oh, I know.
How do you know? How do you know?
Because you live.
How do you know? Can I finish my sentence? Because you don't know. You don't know what I'm asking. No, plenty of people don't. There are people out there that are doing horrific things to other people every day.
And they're objectively wrong.
How do you know? How do you know that they're going to be held accountable? Let me finish talking. I'm going to mute you. I'm going to mute you.
Okay.
How do you know that they're going to be held accountable by some objective source someday?
Because God has revealed as such, but he's also revealed his law. So that's
God
why.
has revealed as such. Can you actually answer my question? How do you know that those people are going to be objectively?
Dude, you gotta let her finish a sentence.
You don't. If you want to have a chance to answer, you have to know what you're even answering. How do you know that somebody is going to be held accountable by an objective source?
Well, because God has revealed himself to say that he will hold all of men accountable for what they've done and what they've said and how they live.
Wait, how did God reveal that? How did God reveal that? Are you saying the Bible says that and that's how you know this?
Yes, but also because your life is in line with God's law, whether or not you believe that.
I have a follow-up question there, Eve, if you allow it.
Yeah, go for it, please.
It's very similar to the last call. Elijah, how do you then grapple with the other people in other religions who believe that their God has revealed their morality to them, the same exact thing you're saying, and their morality is incongruent with yours?
Right. I would say, though, because God is the only true and living God, is by default wrong. Now, they would say the same thing about me, and there's room for that discussion.
Right. So how do you tell the difference?
That is the discussion that we're having right now.
Well, because everyone lives in accordance to God's law. That's how I know that. Whether or not they do it consistently is a different story.
God's law? If you talk to a
Muslim or a Hindu, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. If you talk to a Muslim or a Hindu, they're going to say the same thing, that you follow the law of their gods. And it's evident just plain on the ground that you are in the waves of their religion, and therefore their objective morality from their gods is true. So you can't just say, God said so. And it just seems like, my God, you have to have some actual objective evidence that we can talk about here. How are you actually putting in the work to determine what you're saying is true and what a Muslim is saying is not?
Right. Well, I would say this based on reading Muhammad's own words. In his own words, he said the Quran is a continual revelation process. Hold on a second. Let me finish. You asked me for the same courtesy, so I asked for it in return.
Which you didn't give me, and you still haven't done. But continue.
No,
it's also our show.
Muhammad said that the Quran is the continual revelatory process of the Bible. And he conceded that the Bible was true, even though he rejected the deity of Christ. So Islam, by its definition, is borrowing from the Christian worldview that it rejects. So if you're borrowing from my worldview while rejecting the God that gives it, your worldview isn't consistent. I don't need Islam. Islam needs me. So because of that, Christianity is truth, even if Islam isn't, and especially since Islam is not. But that being said,
so you mischaracterized Islam there just a little bit. I just want to throw out.
I mean, that's what he said.
Islam.
That's what he has said. No, well, they do reject the deity of Christ.
Bible is, yes, Islam says that the Bible is corrupted, that it's been translated by men to serve their interests, that kings and popes and whatever have changed it and tweaked it and reinterpreted it, and that the Quran is the exact same story told appropriately and properly for the very last time. And therefore, it's completely unchanging and inerrant, and it's going to say the exact same way forever. That's the major claim of Islam. And so why?
Well, they don't agree with them. They don't agree with Muhammad then.
Why do you think that Eve should not be wrapped up in a cloth bag at this moment? Because that's the moral standard for this other religion, which says that it comes straight from God.
Well, because God has made it known that she's an image bearer and that no harm should be brought to her because she has dignity and respect.
So because you have a different religion, this religion is therefore wrong, is where we're at.
Yes. Truth by definition is exclusive. That's the truth. If I say Forrest is a unicorn, by definition, he can't be a human. Am I wrong in that assessment?
You're saying truth is exclusive to Christianity? What are you saying truth is exclusive to?
No, I'm saying truth by definition has to exclude something else. So yes, by saying that Christianity is true, I'm by definition saying that all other worldviews are by default wrong.
Cool.
It sounds
So
like what
with-
you're actually saying.
Which is this?
It
Which is good.
doesn't sound like you're saying that Christianity is true, therefore other religions is wrong. It sounds like you're saying, I believe in Christianity, therefore other religions are wrong. That's what it's coming across as.
Whether or not
I
believe Christianity,
Yep.
whether or not I believe Christianity is true doesn't mean does not negate whether it's true or not. It's true objectively.
Prove that it's
but
true.
The question that I ask,
if it's objectively true,
and
then
then
give us evidence that it's true. What is the
because
evidence
you-
that Christianity is true?
because you presuppose its validity in your own worldview. See,
No, I don't.
that's why. Yes, you do.
You're the only one
presupposing. You make
So the only one
you make moral
presupposing here is
judgments.
you.
But you make moral judgments though, based upon what? And you say yourself. And I'm saying, why should I believe your moral judgment? Because you say so.
So even what I'm trying to get across to you, Elijah, is even if what you just said was true, which it super isn't, by the way, but even if that was the case, that wouldn't be evidence. She asked you for evidence for the truth of Christianity, and you said because you presuppose Christianity. Right. It doesn't matter what I presuppose. Right. I don't presuppose Christianity or anything. But
yes, you do.
No, it doesn't.
Because you obey.
How many people have to believe
get on this
something
stage,
for true? How many people have to believe something to be true? Exactly. So whether or not we presuppose anything, whether or not we presuppose anything has nothing to do with objective truth.
Right. Well, you're presupposing that Christianity is true by the way that you make moral judgments on the show.
That's not true, and that doesn't matter.
Thankfully, we do not follow Christianity's standards for morality.
You're right.
We follow significantly better standards for morality than the Bible.
Based on what? Based on what, Miss Eve?
Based on what's harming other people or not.
I'm sorry. Say that one more time, please.
Based on what is harming other people. So, for example, no one that hosts this show is owning.
Okay.
Nobody that hosts this show is owning other people as slaves. So we're already being more moral. This is back to the other call that we had. So where is your source of objectivity, and how do you know if you're if you're following this objective truth or not? Where is it? Where is the evidence that anybody's being held accountable to it?
Wrong. You're saying that it's wrong to own slaves, and I'm saying based upon what? And you say, well, because it's wrong to harm other people.
It's going against the consent of. It's going against the consent of another human being. So as soon as you go against the consent of another human being, you have crossed the line of morality.
But you're presupposing that humans have dignity and worth based upon what?
No, I'm not presupposing it. I'm saying I like that and I want to go with it because it makes the world better and I want humanity to exist.
Okay, so what? You're stardust floating on a rock in Earth. Who cares about your moral standards? You already admitted it's arbitrary. Okay, so then why should I listen to your moral standard at all?
You don't have to, and that's fine. You're going to be held accountable to the law, hopefully, but that's the whole point. Can you show me where anybody is being held to an objective standard? Elijah, show me one example of a person experiencing actual consequences from an objective source when it comes to their moral decisions. Do you have evidence of a person being held accountable by a God?
People. Yes, by the fact that we put people in prison when they break God's law. That's why.
So do you think that everyone that does something immoral receives a consequence
will
for
be held accountable?
Will be or are. You can't. Well, one day Forrest is going to be a unicorn too, and you just have to believe me because I said it.
I mean, but hold a second. But you're going against the laws of logic to assert something that you know won't be true. So saying that
Elijah,
person will be punished is not illogical. I'm asking you to
tell me how you know that this is true, and you have given zero answers. How do you know that someone is going to be held?
You keep appealing to my worldview. You keep appealing to my worldview. You build your own about mine.
I haven't at all.
Yes, you are.
I haven't at all.
You
are not answering the question. I need you to answer the question.
I did answer your question. I did answer
your
question.
How do you know that somebody is going to be held? Do you want to hear my question so you can answer it, or we can let you go? Because so far you're not. Yeah, please.
Yeah, I'll do one more and then I'm good because I would love to actually hear what you're saying, and that's not going to happen with this call. Elijah, I'll give you one more thing just for fun. As I said a minute ago, I have a strong nihilistic philosophy. I don't think that I'm important.
Okay.
I don't think that life is important. I don't think the earth is important. I think that if this entire planet were completely wiped out in the most horrific way possible and there is no earth or anything on it anymore, it doesn't mean absolute jack shit for the entire universe. I don't have any objective yes, I have no objective standard of value, anything like that for this planet. So following that up, you're gonna have to let me finish the fucking question, dude. So
then why do you
following
get
that
angry
up,
when people talk bad about your
I'm going to go ahead and mute you now because you cannot control yourself for 5 fucking seconds. It's unbelievable. The only reason I didn't mute you when Eve was talking, I wanted you to be able to do it yourself if you wanted to. I didn't want to control what you were doing, but like, I'm not going to fucking tolerate it at this point. So I don't think that there's any objective morality at all because I don't think morality is a real thing. It's made up by us. Same things with justice and liberty and freedom. These are concepts that we have developed to try to paint a better picture of the reality that we live in. The country that we live in, the nations that we put together, the borders that we draw are all made up. They're all bullshit. And we just decided this is the kind of society that we want to live in. Some of it was religiously motivated. A lot of it wasn't. And as we talked about in the last call, if you lived your life based on what the Bible says, you'd be thrown in jail really quick. And we're very happy about that. So here we have this society. And Eve is asking you, how do you know, like, what's going to happen if somebody breaks God's law? What's going to happen? And you're saying, oh, they'll be punished. The punishment and the laws and the courts and the jails and all of this is all made up. It's all made by humans. It's all bullshit as well. So when we talk about objective morality, when we talk about us building our own moralities, I've picked a standard, which is health and well-being of conscious thinking creatures. I think that's pretty important. I know what suffering feels like, and I don't want anybody else to feel that way. Good old-fashioned golden rule shit. Treat people how they want to be treated. Only I take it a little bit further, and I think treating people how they want to be treated is pretty cool. I don't believe that I'm going to be punished infinitely. I might go to jail, but I don't think I'm going to be punished in any afterlife if I'm a bad person. I don't think I'm going to be rewarded if I'm a good person. I have no consequence or reward system whatsoever. What I have is an application of basic moral principles that are universal. It's wrong to hurt somebody and murder somebody because you are violating their consent. You're taking away their autonomy. You are imposing your will upon them. Unless I'm defending myself or someone else.
If you don't want yours taken away. Yeah, if you don't want your consent taken away, then we respect that. And that's why we've reached these agreements and we've made up this moral code of society.
That's some really kindergarten level shit. It shouldn't be hard. Yes. So we know that we live around other conscious thinking people and we want to do right by them. I'm not going to get a cookie because I did it. I'm not going to get hit because I didn't. I just don't want to be a dick. That's my morality. Don't be a dick as much as I can. And I make mistakes and I apologize for those mistakes and I try to do better every day and I'm a better person because of it. That's where I get my morality from. It is. You could say it's subjective, sure. But that doesn't make it worse. In fact, it's better because it means that it's something that's argued and reasoned and discussed. And I talk to other people and I get their opinions and we build a better world together rather than looking at some Iron Age sex manual that says it's okay to own people as farming equipment and saying, well, if you squint your eyes really hard and leave out the shit parts, there's some stuff about love in there and that's pretty nice. So I'm going to bring you back on and I'm going to give you one more chance just to like have an actual conversation with us without talking over us a bunch. That's what we've been trying to get across to you for 27 fucking minutes now, or 21, I think. Just our morality is, you could argue, subjective. We're not borrowing from anything from Christianity, though. Christianity is unnecessary for everything that I just said. Some of it may be involved in Christianity, but I promise you, Christianity didn't come first. We weren't all raping and murdering each other until randomly 2,000 years ago, a fucking Jewish carpenter got nailed to a piece of wood. And we were all like, well, I guess we better stop killing people now. That didn't happen. We were fine for hundreds of thousands of years before it. And we're fine now for 2,000 years after it. Please grapple with that. I will bring you back now.
Well,
what do you think about what we just said?
Are you still talking?
I mean, you just said... You said that justice and morality and all these things are merely constructs, and then you're turning around and saying, but it's wrong to do this, it's wrong to do that. I'm going, so what? You've admitted yourself you're a nihilist who doesn't even care about his own safety, his own worldview. So why should I build my foundation upon a worldview of someone? Yes, it is. You said I have no self-importance. I don't care what happens to other people. I don't care what happens to Earth. If that's the case, then why do you live?
He didn't say that at all.
It wouldn't matter. I didn't say I don't care. I said it doesn't objectively matter. I said that there's no such thing as objective good or evil, but I personally care about the health because I know what it feels like to suffer, and I don't want anybody else to feel that way. I just said this.
So who died and made you the arbiter of what's good and what's evil, Forrest?
Nobody. I'm not.
Okay, so then your worldview
I just
is
said that I don't care. All I have said is I don't want people to be hurting. That doesn't make me any arbiter of morality. That's my thought process that I'm putting out into the world. And it just so happens that most of the world agrees, and the ones who don't agree are psychopaths. And so we all have this kind of inherent assistance. Yes. And then we as a society say, we don't care about your standard. You don't get to kill people, and we throw you in jail. That's how society works.
Elijah, can I just ask? Let's sum all this up. I have one last question.
In China, they don't believe that. In North Korea, they don't believe that. In Iran,
we don't need to talk about people in other countries and what they believe. I have a question for you. Let's pretend that I have broken all of the 10 Commandments, and no one is ever going to find out. They're going to have no idea. Now, convince me why I should. Convince me that he does, and what your evidence is that someday this is going to come back on you. Because you're claiming there's an objective. Let me finish. I'm muting you. You're claiming that there's an objective standard that is going to hold me accountable someday. What is your evidence that that is true? Ready, convince me so that I stop breaking all the 10 Commandments. Going to unmute you now. If you're still talking, I think I'm done.
Oh, well, because you live with more restraint. That's why you.
I don't. Apparently, I just broke all of the 10 Commandments. So who's going to hold me accountable, and where's your evidence that they're going to do so? I did. I'm telling you that I just broke all of the 10 Commandments.
Right now?
It's a hypothetical, dude.
It's a hypothetical, and I'm asking you for an answer. Where is your evidence that someday I will be held accountable for this?
Because God has revealed his law to be such in his word.
No, he hasn't, because here I am doing it. Yes, here I am breaking all the 10 Commandments. Show me where I'm going to be held accountable.
Righteousness.
This is so dishonest.
It doesn't matter whether or not you believe.
This is.
It doesn't matter what you believe. You will be held accountable.
I'm so good. This is absolutely ridiculous.
Elijah, it's been frustrating for 30 minutes. We're going to move on. Just dude,
be honest, and then we can have a conversation. Like, answer the fucking questions, or maybe even listen to the fucking questions.
It's exactly like the last caller. Just like if you give a point, if you say something, just complete sidetrack to something else, or just it's true because it's true because I said it's true. Why didn't you hear me? I said it was true. It's like, come on, man.
Yeah,
that's so frustrating. If
you have to start lying to answer our questions, then let's move on to people who maybe are going to not answer completely honestly, but they're at least not going to lie over and over again. And they maybe let us finish our sentences too. Good
gravy, y'all. We've got two that I think are interesting. We've got a few different, we've got a bunch in line, but I've got two that I think are interesting. One of them is line number 6, which I would love to just sit down with for 5.
Please.
But I think line number 20 would be more entertaining. So like, what do you think?
Let's see. Oh man. Either of those are good. Whatever you're in the mood for right now.
Okay. We have 45 minutes left. I'm gonna go ahead and take 6 just to see how quickly I can get through it, and then we'll go. Is that okay with you?
6. That's great.
Groovy. Okay, we've got somebody who's been waiting on the line for like 2.5 hours here. So this is Marty, pronouns he, him, calling in from Mighty Anus, who says that he's looking into evolution against creationism and has some questions. Marty, it's my whole ass job to explain these things. So I'm going to try to be succinct as much as I can so we can jump on to a different one. But like, you've been waiting for a long time, and I want to give you the time to ask whatever questions you have and give you as much of an answer as I possibly can in the time that we have. So welcome to the line. How are you today?
Hey, Forrest and Eve. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you?
I've never had a bad day, dude. I'm awesome.
Oh, good. Yeah, well,
fuck.
so I've been going through evolution. I've listened to pretty much all of the Reacteria and some of the Light of Evolution videos. I've
good.
even I've binged a ton of Gutsick Gibbon, Erika, like all of her stuff. And I'm going back. So I don't know, right now I guess I am a creationist, and I'm in dialogue with my friend right now who is a old Earth creationist, and so we're bouncing off ideas from each other, and he's saying things, and when he's saying, I'm like, dude, that's just not how I've come to understand evolution based on your videos and others that I'm watching. And so he was saying that we're talking about DNA and how humans have miles and miles longer of DNA than an amoeba or an ancient organism that would have evolved. And so he was saying that his understanding of evolution is that you would have more DNA in humans, and therefore would need to be new DNA, and you can't just get random new DNA that produces positive change. And I explained to him, I said, no, I don't think they're trying to say it's new DNA necessarily out of nothing or random. It's potentially point mutations or duplication errors or things that eventually equal a positive change. Now, can you speak to that in regards to do humans have more DNA now than there was, ancient organisms had, or I'm just so confused on that. That's
lots of different things have different amounts of DNA. Absolutely. So like, yeah, we have more DNA than like a bacteria. Trees have way more DNA than us. And so like, it really depends on what kind of thing it is. And there's so when I first was like, I took like a early intro bio class, I learned that fact, and I was like, oh, well, that makes sense because trees are older. And so they've had more time to accumulate DNA. And like I kind of dug into that. I was like, okay, well, actually, no, that doesn't make any sense. It's just a thing that can happen. Like, for example, here in Oklahoma, where I live, we have these tree frogs, these gray tree frogs, and there's 2 species of them. They're called cryptic species because they look exactly the same. You have to do genetic testing on them or listen to their calls. Their calls are slightly different. And the only actual real difference between them is that one of them has twice as much DNA as the other. There was just a non-disjunction. They just, one day one of them reproduced and didn't separate the DNA properly. I don't know. And so we like that shit happens. As far as like how new DNA comes about, there's lots of different ways that can happen. There can be duplications, as you said. There can be chromosomal non-disjunctions. There can be a lot of ways where you can have like de novo gene birth, just new genes being produced. And there's great papers on that shit laying around if you want to go dig one up. But to say that we can't get new DNA that's useful doesn't make any sense. Because like I don't want to say all DNA does stuff, but like all DNA has the potential to do stuff. You know what I mean? Whether or not that stuff is how do you say, beneficial is up in the air. But that's the whole thing about fitness, is that it's kind of relative. Is that a good enough answer for what you're saying? Because I could that's a whole thing that like I could pull out 50 different resources and it's just not useful for a show like this.
Yeah, no, I mean I think resources would be great. I mean, because he's just saying, coming from the creation, because I'm trying to be open here and trying to understand, but he's very what do you say, like hard-headed, and he's just telling me like, no, dude, no new DNA can form. That's positive, like out of nothing or random. But that's again what you're saying is like, and I tried to tell him, he's like, if we have a book on War and Peace and you rejumble that up, you're either going to have a different book or a less of that book. And I told him, that's one part of mutation. But if you double that book, now you have 2 books. And he said, no, that breaks the analogy. But I told him, no, but that's also a duplication error.
Well, then your analogy sucks. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. So essentially, DNA has not only duplicated, but has been created over time. Is that what I'm understanding?
So like one thing, like so there's a lot to say here, and there's a reason why I'm kind of being a little bit dodgy about it, because like the DNA is remarkably complicated. and epigenetics adds a whole other layer to it. And so, like, you have transposable elements in your DNA called transposons, things that, like, genes that can jump. They actually call them jumping genes sometimes, jump from place to place and cause different effects and cause the same DNA to do different shit and be expressed in a different way. And, like, so having something like that evolve in one time could radically change all of how your DNA works. Epigenetics is changes to not what your DNA sequence is, but how your DNA is expressed. So, like, you could the reason why your skin cells and your bone cells and your eye cells, they all have the same DNA. There's a reason why your eyes aren't made out of bone and your bones aren't made out of eyes. It's because different genes are turned on and different genes are turned off, and different things are what we call transcriptionally active. And there's, like, all these layers of gene control that are all through just molecular mechanisms within the DNA. So, like, having new DNA form, yeah, we know how that can happen. And we know lots of ways in which that works. I'm going to put some links in the chat here. While you're speaking, I just went to Google Scholar and I just typed in de novo gene birth and gene evolution and all these things. Here's a paper I haven't read. I just the first one that I found here from Pelos Genetics here. De novo gene birth is a process by which new genes evolve from DNA sequences that were ancestrally non-genic. De novo genes represent a subset of novel genes, which may be protein coding or instead act as RNA genes. The process that governed de novo gene birth are not well understood. This is from 2019, I believe. But there's several models although several models exist that describe possible mechanisms by which de novo gene birth may occur. And it goes on. I'm just reading the abstract here. And so it gives you this paper that I just posted. Here's a history. Here's some really cool diagrams. It explains how, like, different things through horizontal gene transfer, through gene fusion, through gene fission, through duplication, through divergence, how to identify new genes. Like, it gives some really, really nice. I'm gonna read it later. It's a tasty little paper. And so, like, this is a thing that, like, if you wanted to take the time to dig into it, it's going to get kind of esoteric, and there's going to be some shit in there that you're like, all right, well, what the fuck does this mean? And you'll have to go and kind of Google and look up, a couple of things to, like, build the foundation. But honestly, stuff like this, you can skim it and get a pretty good handle on, like, just the broad what we know and go from there with it. Okay. I'm looking up other ones. Here's transposable elements as mutator genes, structure of evolution, transposon familiarity. I'm seeing if I can get, like, new gene evolution. This is just new gene evolution from transposons. Fucking stop it. It's trying to auto type for me. God damn you. No. New gene evolution. And we'll just try that. New gene evolution, little did we know. Review from 2013. Origins, evolution, and phenotypic impact of new genes from 2010. Pseudoallelism and gene evolution from 1951. Like, there's a bunch of resources out there about, like, what we know about how this shit works. But what's really important to remember is that, like, we know, like, we have a pretty good handle on how new nucleic acids can form, like, from scratch. But there's no reason to believe that that's what's happening inside, like, living organisms that are developing new genes. This is not realistic. What is realistic is that any one of the many, 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 many types of mutations that we know about develops new genes. And those new genes then develop into different varieties and create evolutionary advantages.
Okay. Yeah, dude, that's a lot. I'm gonna look into it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, no worries. So, like I said, I'm not trying to, like, dump a bunch of shit on you. I just want to show you there's a good deal to dig into if you want.
No, and I appreciate that, man. And I want to ask you, kind of, same along the lines of evolution. The one thing that creationists kind of, like, tout all the time is, I was watching another video from Intelligent Design Center or Institute or something like that, and it had all these PhDs, and they were saying, no, Australopithecus sediba, that's actually just a mix of ape and human bones because it was found in this giant pit of just a bunch of different bones. But from what I understand, that, I don't know if that's true or not, but from what I understand from Erika, she was saying that, no, like, some bones are found in articulation. I mean, can you speak to this kind of, like, rhetoric that creationists use, like, oh, they're just found in bone pits and they're all mixed together and blah blah blah.
Yeah, I would encourage those people to like take a paleoanthropology course and like learn how we actually know about that shit. You said Australopithecus sediba.
Yeah, that's the example that they were using.
I'm going to give you a heads up, Forrest, that you're being paged over on Discord because we have to wrap up the show a little earlier than we were planning because we want to keep the preview.
Yes. Okay, cool.
Anyways, just alerting you to that while you're wrapping up this phone call.
Yes. No, I appreciate that. Yes, thank you. I'm going to put another link in the chat. This is fucking host it, you shit. This is a human evolution website that's really handy. It's called humanorigins.si. This is the Smithsonian Institute's like just list of human fossils. And here I've got the page for Australopithecus sediba, and it shows history of the discovery, evolutionary tree information, questions that we don't know answers to about this species, and like and it also shows references on like the papers that published it. It shows pictures of the specimens. I'm not going to speak to that one particular fossil because that really is Erika's expertise. If you want to call into Skeptalk or Chewed Gum whenever she's on, she'd be able to knock this out of the park with that particular fossil off the top of her head. But yeah, what I can say, though, is that whenever we find a human ancestor, a lot of creationists like to just say, well, that's just an extinct ape. And yeah, it is, because humans are apes. So all of our ancestors, if you find some, Australopithecus or hominin or whatever like that, yeah, it was a different ape until you go further enough back that they weren't apes anymore. So like, what they're saying about that this was just found in some bone pit, that's called a faunal assemblage, and that's how fucking archaeology works. I don't know what to tell you. To say that it's discredited because it was just an ape or a mix of human and ape or whatever like that. Number one, I want to know how they got to that analysis, and number two, if they're separating humans from apes rather than you could use words like non-human apes, and that's one thing. But if they're trying to split hairs, I don't think they know what the fuck they're talking about.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, no, I appreciate that. I'll look at that link, and I know you got to go, so you can't answer this one question. I understand, but it has to be quick or not at all.
I'll be very fast.
So okay. In regards to whale evolution, I've seen videos where they talk about the transitional forms, and they like to put, and I'm not going to say this right, Indohyus prior to
you said it perfect.
Pakicetus. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
So they put Indohyus previous to Pakicetus, but Pakicetus is older than Indohyus. Now I know they say that they're cousins, and so they must have had some. So then I don't think what I'm learning is that they're saying no, that Pakicetus came from Indohyus, but what they're saying is they're both related to some other common ancestor, and then those both were transitional into whales. Like, because that's what creationists will tout. They'll say, well, no, Indohyus was 48 million years ago and Pakicetus was 52. Therefore, they're not actually transitional. And I don't know, can you speak to that at all?
Ask them, why do whales today have multi-chambered stomachs? Because they're evolved from artiodactyls. They're evolved from terrestrial ruminants like deer. Like deer, not from deer, but things like deer and lambs and sheeps and things like that have multi-chambered stomachs. They are evolved from those things, and modern, I think baleen whales especially, have like 3 or 4 chambers in their stomachs. So why do they have hip bones? Oh, well, it's because it's a muscle attachment for their penis. Okay, why do they have hand bones? Oh, well, it's because of the way that they propel this. Why do they have multi-chambered stomachs, which is something that you only need if you're a ruminant and you eat fucking grass? Weird, right? Yeah. So, it's just, you can sit here and fucking get real pedantic about fossils all you want and about like, oh, this is technically that. And there's an easy explanation, which is that, these things were contemporaries. It's not a straight line. Evolution isn't a ladder. That's not how it works. They're misrepresenting evolution in order to try to make it look bad. You can look at modern whales today and still see vestigial remnants of their terrestrial past. You can also look up fucking whale fossils and do isotopic analysis on them and show a shift from freshwater to saltwater. But I mean, I don't expect a creationist to know what an isotope is. Anyway, with that,
I'm going to be the buzzkill because we might potentially have time for like one more short call. We have got to get our show on the road, but thank you so much, Mike.
Yes. I appreciate you, Marty.
Thank you both. Thank you.
Thanks.
Appreciate you.
Take care.
Okay.
Yeah,
so
I forgot
if we
we
had
had
time
to cut
for
it
one more
early.
short,
I was like, we have
yeah,
45
well, we have
minutes. Like, no, we have 15.
We have 15 more minutes. So maybe we
Yes.
can whichever
of
one
one you want.
Let's see.
I'll leave it up to you.
Yeah, let's just go with 20.
20 it is.
We'll have to wrap it up quickly, but let's try.
Yeah. We'll go for Giddy. Pronouns he, him, calling in from Utah, which is the state that is the most Utah in the whole country, saying that they can defend God and explain scientific facts. I've been contorted to religious dogmas to a person who uses a scientific method to enforce biases and dogma of theirs and my religion and God, in this case, Mormonism. That's a lot. So we got a Mormon on the line. Hi, Giddy. You're on the line. How are you doing today?
Hello?
Giddy, can you hear us? Oh, don't get my hopes up this hard and then not be there.
I have to move on.
Damn it.
Okay.
Oh, I was excited.
Let's just go on to 21 then, I guess.
21 it is. We've got Billy, pronouns he, him, calling in from uncommon kilowatts. That's stupid. Billy, pronouns he, him, asking if we can prove that love exists. Billy, you're on the line. How are you doing today?
Hello. Hi.
Okay, hi, Billy.
Hi there.
Hi.
Damn it! I should have said uncommon kangaroos.
Is that your is that your main thing you wanted to say? Prove love exists? Because my initial response is I don't think love exists as an entity. I think love is it's a word that we use. Other languages have lots more words to get more descriptive, and we use it to describe all kinds of different things, ranging from emotion or acts, even a nickname for somebody. So already, I'm not sure how to prove to you because I don't agree with the premise that love exists.
You don't think love exists?
As an entity, as its own separate thing? No.
Yeah, I would just build on that and say if you were to ask me, it's a series and a collection of like mainly chemical reactions, and we kind of give this blanket name to it. So like if you're saying like love is like this objective thing that's like confined and definable, then yeah, I'd have a really hard time nailing that down. It sounds really nebulous and philosophical. But if you're saying like the emotion of love, the reactions that come along with it, the neurotransmitters that cause it, the behaviors that precede it, like those are all things that we can stand by and say, yeah, these are real things.
Love is something we talk about and a word we use. So, you know, is it real? Is it a real thing, or is it a made up thing when we refer to love?
I think it's mostly made up. I think it's made up.
Okay.
It's on what you're like. You'd have to give me an exact definition for love because, like I said, it's a word we use to describe so many different things. It's a very vague term. So if you gave me an exact definition for love, I can tell you if I think it's real or not.
It's not so easy to give an exact definition, is it? But if you're saying
because people use it to describe all kinds of things, just like people use the color red to describe a range of different red tones. Tones might not even be the right word.
The color red exists, right?
Sure.
The color red is real.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is that
love isn't real.
Red.
Give me a definition of love.
Like, even that. Like, we're talking about the color red. Colors are the result of different wavelengths of light, right? Like visible light is set between certain wavelengths, and the rainbow is like different sets. And so, like, red is a certain set of wavelengths. But even that's kind of fuzzy because, like, if you put a color gradient between red and orange, you could say this is definitely red and that's definitely orange. You couldn't pick one spot in the middle where you could draw a line and say, okay, everything to the left of this is absolutely, definitely red, and everything to the right of this is absolutely orange. You know, you can't do that. And so it's like everything within these parameters of nanometers of wavelength, but also a little bit outside of it too. So even that, like, we can say this is an objective thing, but it's fuzzy. And the same thing with love. If you want to say this one thing that I'm talking about this particular concentration of oxytocin and serotonin in the brain that causes this particular feeling, it's going to have fuzzy borders and it's going to be hard. I just spit everywhere, and you probably saw it on the camera. It's really fucking gross. Nobody
I didn't see it, but thanks for telling me.
Okay. So you wouldn't be comfortable to say that the color red exists either? It sounds like.
Well, that's that's the thing, man. I can say yeah, but it's gonna be hard to pin down. And if you try to like draw a box around it, you're immediately gonna find a million exceptions.
View. You
Colloquially,
personally,
sure.
Would you be comfortable saying it exists? Would you
I'm
say
gonna give you a shitty
color
answer. I'm really not trying to dodge your question. I want you to know that. The answer I would give is that there are definitely absolutely things that I would call red, but I cannot give you an exact definition of red because it's a fuzzy. The borderlines of red are too vague.
Which is,
and
it's Billy, that's my point with that's my point with the word love. So Billy, I can say that I love my mom, and then I can say that I love my dog, and it's very different. So also I can say that I love the M&Ms that I was just eating earlier. So you know what I mean? Like these are different. People use this word to describe a range of different emotions, acts.
We can't make a comprehensive definition of it. We can't make a comprehensive definition of when something's red. But you're saying some things you will declare as being red, and some things you will declare as being love.
Well, that's why I asked you to give me your definition for love. If you give me a definition, I can tell you if I think that exists or not.
When something's red, is it really red? Is that true, or is it made up?
When something is red, is it really red? If it's red, then yes.
Some cases when you would say it definitely is. You just can't give a comprehensive definition for all cases, but there are some cases where you would say it's definitely red in this case. And in that case, is that a fact? Is that real red you've got there? I don't have to define it comprehensively to know that there are some things that are red, some things that are love.
Why can't you just give me a definition for love and I can tell you if I believe it exists or not?
I think it's difficult to give a comprehensive definition for love, but I think love is real.
Well, then it's difficult for me to give you an answer.
Yeah. You think love is real?
You have to give me a definition for me to tell you.
Well, I'm asking for your own view. I wouldn't define it for you.
No, I just gave you an example of how I use love, that word, like 20 different ways. So it depends on which of those you're asking me.
So some of the ways you use it, that's love for you. That's real. That's not made up. That's love.
So
right?
if I say I love M&Ms, do I think that love exists? Is that what you're asking?
Yes. Is that a real thing that you're referring to? You love them.
I'm referring to a positive emotion I'm having surrounding the idea of eating these M&Ms.
Which is a real thing. Is it a real thing?
The positive emotion?
Yeah. The thing that you're using the word love for, does that exist? Is that a real thing, or is it a made up thing?
Yes. When I eat those M&Ms, I'm sure Forrest can explain to us what chemical is going off in my brain that makes me want to eat 20 more.
I would love to. We only have 10 minutes left.
You're referring to something real when you use the word love in that case. It's not made up.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
We're talking about an electrochemical reaction. Yes.
When it comes to me saying I love M&Ms, I'm using that word to describe something otherwise indescribable.
And there are lots of ways we use the word, right? There's other types and harder, more subtle things, more subtle kinds of love that are more difficult to define, but we still use the word, and it's not necessarily just fabricated in those cases. It's just difficult to describe, but it might be real.
So are you using love as a placeholder for God? Because I'm trying to understand your point. We only have 10 minutes, actually 5 minutes left.
I feel like this is meant to get somewhere and it hasn't gotten there yet.
Yeah, because I'd rather you just say that. If you're trying to say like God is love and like we can't really define it and therefore we can't really, I don't know what your point is exactly, but is that where you're going with this, that God is love? Billy?
I think
you had to flip to that page of the script.
I don't think it necessarily needs to be where the conversation goes.
It does, because we only have 4 minutes now. So I'm very eager to try to answer your question, but I would rather get to the point than it be like this whole long trail that we go down. So I answered your question. Yeah. Depending on the definition of love, sure, I believe it exists. I do not believe that love exists as a separate entity. I don't think that there's this thing out there that exists that is love.
But for the cases that you think are love, they exist.
It's like fire, Billy. Fire is a chemical reaction. Yeah, fire is a chemical reaction. It's the conversion of oxygen and hydrocarbons into carbon dioxide and water vapor. You can draw out the reaction mechanism for fire. Fire is a real thing, but you can't go grab a scoop of fire from something, right? You can't go take a teaspoon of fire and put it into something. Fire is just a process. It's a thing that's happening. Same thing with love. It's a process. It's a thing that's happening. It's an electrochemical reaction in your brain. And we use it to describe a lot of different things with varying degrees of severity and importance and meaning and whatever else like that. You can't go just inject some love into somebody, but you can describe a process.
You're saying it's a chemical thing. That's how you define it.
More or less, yeah.
It depends on what we're saying. Again, because love is just this mostly colloquial term that we use to describe all kinds of generally positive emotions we have towards someone or something. And those are measurable, oftentimes.
What? How?
Or it's an act. If I say, "Oh, that was such a loving thing to do," I'm just saying.
You said it was measurable. You said it was measurable. You said it was. How is it measurable?
I said oftentimes it can be measurable. So if there's a chemical process, it's a chemical process happening in someone's brain, which is what Forrest already talked about.
Yeah, I'm interested in what cases you've measured it and how you did it. You said it was measurable.
What I'm saying is that oftentimes we are using the word love.
Measure it.
So, Bill, oftentimes we are using the word love to describe a chemical process that's happening. So when I eat those M&Ms and I'm like, this is giving me the best feeling ever, and I have that release of whatever it is that's making me want to eat them again, I'm using the word love to describe that.
It's always a chemical process.
Love is not some separate entity that it exists or not. It is a word we use to describe other things that do exist.
If it's a chemical process, then it is. I mean, are you both saying that that's what it basically comes down to, a chemical process?
No, I did not say so, Billy. I didn't say that. I did not say that love is a chemical process. And if I did, yeah, oftentimes we're using the word
chemical process, and I'm asking you whether that's all the time or are there other types.
Billy, I'm going to mute you.
You just answered your own question.
Yeah, so Billy, here's my question.
You just repeated her. I'm sorry. I apologize, Eve. He literally just said, you just said that oftentimes it's this, and I think you mean always. No, we are telling you what we think.
So Billy, let me just finish my cases all right, I'm muting you just so I can say this because we have like 2 minutes left. So love is a word we use to often describe a chemical process. I don't think that love is a chemical process. I think that oftentimes we use the word love to describe one of many chemical processes. So there's my final answer for you. Now you maybe are unmuted. Okay, now you are.
I'm interested that you are reluctant to speak about the other cases that aren't a chemical process that you seem to be claiming exist.
So Billy, we're gonna have to go because we only have 2 minutes left. But this seems like you're just trying to play a game because here's the issue. I asked you from the very start. I'm going to mute you again since you're interrupting me again. So I asked you from the very beginning, if you would give me a definition for love so I can tell you if I think it exists or not. I can't say, yeah, sure, here's some vague term and I'm just going to blanket apply my belief on it. That I wanted to get a definition from you so I could be honest and let you know if I believe that definition exists or not, or if I even agree with that definition. And you did not give me that. You're just saying, here's this vague word that we use, and do you believe it exists or not? And I'm saying, if that's the only thing you're giving me, I do not believe that there is some objective entity thing that is love that exists. So that's my final answer. You've got like 1 minute and then we have to end the show. Oh, you were still talking, man. You weren't even listening to me. So this is very pointless. I was. You were talking.
I don't get much opportunity to speak myself. You believe in the case when it's chemical
because it's not your show, bro.
I'm gonna end. So if you want to call back another time, then we can have this conversation. I'm going to end it very quickly if you continue to ignore me. I was trying to get you an answer. I asked you several things. You weren't able to answer them. So call back another time. Tuesday night, if you want to talk to me again, I'll be on Chewed Gum. We can try this again. I will be using the mute button and I'll have to end the call if we can't actually engage in conversation. But call back. We can have this exact same conversation if you want. Anyways,
call back
are you good if I drop the call?
Skeptalk with Morticia. She's a microbiologist. You can have two biologists talking about just the chemistry of it, or you can have somebody who's a lot more articulate and kind than I will be in that call talking to you if you're calling to Chewed Gum.
All right. Well, thanks, Philly. I'm going to let you go.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'm still learning how to like push all these buttons. I think I did it. Okay.
I got you, homie. I get you back. There we go.
Man,
Sweet.
I feel like we had a couple of really great calls and then a couple of like, I'm going to have to get really good at using the mute button type calls.
Yeah, I'm hesitant to use it all the time, especially I don't like using the mute button for my fellow hosts. You know what I mean? I don't want to like you don't get to talk. I want to give you that. But even with myself, I very, very rarely like to use it because I don't want to be I don't want to try to control it too much. I want people to have as much rope as they need.
Yeah, totally.
It's rough, dude. With that,
this has been fun though.
40. It's been a freaking awesome show. I'm sad. Like, there were a few calls that we got that seemed really fun that dropped off. We had a couple of other creationists that wanted to argue. We had a couple of people talking about proving God with whatever axioms. We had one guy who said he was going to educate me on trans issues. I'm very excited about that. Hope that guy calls back someday.
Wow.
Or better yet, call the Transatlantic Call-In Show and talk to actual trans people about them and their own issues. That would be really cool. But for now, it is time for you to listen to this promo of the podcast, whether you like it or not. So, Eve, thank you so much for being awesome and hanging out with me today. It was a lot of fun.
Thanks for letting me hang. This was great.
It wasn't my choice, but I appreciate you being here nonetheless.
And to everybody else, make sure you stay tuned for this. It's the little sample episode of the podcast that we've launched over on our Patreon. And I already started listening to it. It's a great episode. There's also an episode before this one that happens to be me. If you want to hear me yap for a couple hours. So stay tuned and listen to this episode. Also, thank you so much to our mods and to our producer, Morgan. Always appreciate you guys.
Yep.
I've only got 2 more questions in this section. This next one might be loaded or it might be easy. But this is the second to last question for everybody. Forrest Valkai. Are you okay?
Me. Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm pretty fucking overwhelmed right now. I got a lot going on. But I'm making good headway on editing.
I can hear I'm
writing some cool stuff
there. I feel like there was a lot implied in that. I got a lot going on right now, and then some asshole called me to do a podcast in the middle of the day, totally unplanned.
Yeah,
I feel like that was in there.
It's
parentheses.
Currently about 1:30 in the afternoon. I just took half of a shower so that I could come here and be on this podcast, and I haven't eaten anything today. And I'm very tired.
I'm currently in a fast. Are you making sure you still hit electrolytes when you're fasting? You got to do that.
I'm not in a fast. My life is in shambles and I live like a slob, but I haven't fucking eaten anything yet because I'm fucking busy doing stuff. And as I realize as I'm sitting here, I'm like, why does my stomach hurt so bad? Oh yeah.
Put some salt in your hand and lick it. It's good for you.
Hell yeah.
Get those electrolytes.
I'm gonna go get some fucking some like a succulent Chinese meal after this.
A succulent Chinese
Chinese.
That does sound nice.
This is the one that's got me by the penis.
He's got me by the penis, people. Have you seen his interview where he does clarify that he made that part up? There wasn't any penis.
No, dude, that was the context that I needed after all these years. Seeing that interview is so good.
Yeah. All right, here's the last question of this segment. What would you name a cat with markings around their eye that looked like a monocle? This is very important. No wrong answers.
I would name Erasmus.
Okay. Erasmus.
Or Snert.
Okay. All right. I'm trying to remember.
Or like maybe Brungus. Brungus would be good.
Eve's answer was something like,
I'm bad at naming things.
Eve's answer was something like Gertrude, and I realized when she said it that I had done like the riddle where like the person comes in the hospital, I can't operate on them because this is my son, how is this possible? And it's just to expose sexism that the doctor is the mother. And I was like, shit, why did I assume monocles were only worn by boys? I was like taken aback that she was saying girl names, and I realized I don't think I've ever seen a girl wearing a monocle in my life.
It'd be hot.
Yeah, just a monocle. That's my new podcast. Welcome to Just a Monocle with Jimmy Snow. No, my new podcast, the personal one that won't be unplanned and impromptu like this, it's the best name that anybody's ever come up with. Have I already told you this?
You haven't, but feel free to shamelessly self-promote.
Well, it's not even out yet, so I can't. What are people going to do? But anyway, the podcast featuring me, Jimmy Snow, will be called. This is the official name. Jimmy Snow has a podcast.
Nice.
Isn't that just the best?
Nice.
All right.
I love that.
That ends the personal questionnaire. If you've got time,
thank God,
we're gonna do the read some YouTube comments directed at you. I bet they're gonna be all mostly nice, and then we'll do the game, and we'll call it a day here. Let's see.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's type in Forrest.
If they are nice, don't do it because I can't handle that right now.
Let's see. My compliments to the chef for the title's use of shred. Bravo, Jimmy, and Forrest. One of my favorite combinations of people. I agree. I think we tag team well.
We work really well together. Yeah.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Our last show we did together was a lot of fun. It
was.
I'm still riding the high of how much fun I had that night.
Hell yeah.
Erika is awesome. I was ecstatic when I see her and Forrest doing another show that I watched. John, go home. You're drunk. Let's see.
Right on.
This one is how you and Aron are awesome. You're saying you don't want too many compliments. Okay, here's one that's a little critical. I'm surprised that Forrest and Aron, though they spelled it Aaron, didn't call out the caller on his dishonesty. He began by proclaiming that science led him to deism with the vapid glass metaphor, but quickly shifted toward it being a residual daddy issue from early religious indoctrination. Do with that what you will. Do you got anything?
Okay.
Yeah. It's literally like when you're in the hot seat and somebody's gish galloping at you, people are always going to be disappointed when you only manage to knock out 7 of their 99 statements. And you're like, I can't.
Yeah, that's like, I don't think people like it. Yeah, I'm not trying to say like, oh, woe is me here, but like, I think like a lot of people that are critical of these shows, as I was when I was watching, the first times I ever watched AXP and everything, like, oh, I wish they'd done that. Oh, I would have done this, but I would have. Like, that's all fine and good to say. But when you're sitting there with lights in your face and you know that there's somebody watching every fucking muscle twitch that you do and every fucking time you look and you just under intense scrutiny and you're trying to keep up with what the person is saying and you've got the chat open and you're looking at the next 3 calls to know what's going on there and you've got like producer chat on the other side and you're making sure your framing is right. You've got 4 different windows on 2 different screens open in front of you and you know that several thousand people are going to judge everything you do. You're going to do your fucking best, and that's what's going to happen. And if you think you can do better, become a host. Like, start a channel, do some stuff, get good, get famous, call us, and we'll give you a job.
Yeah, no shit. Yeah. Here's a on the same episode where the person who was like, I don't like your reaction to Chuck for being a bigot, someone else within moments of that same one had written, lol, Forrest going ham on bigots is literally my favorite. So it's funny how often that happens where you get the 2 inverse comments from each other.
2 things about that. Number one, like, fucking, what kind of person would I be if I let that shit? Yeah.
Let's go ahead and do this rant. I just need to step away for a second.
Okay.
There's been something delivered to my door that needs to be put in the fridge. So I'm going to step away and you do your rants while I'm gone. Don't say anything I wouldn't, because I will listen to this in post, probably, maybe. We'll see.
Okay, it'll be short. You go ahead.
All right. I
was gonna say that number one, like, what kind of person would I be if I just let that shit slide and just dealt with what he was actually saying? Like, you gotta fucking stand up for your trans homies. And then also, like, to the person who was saying that you should have let this go and you shouldn't have, and like, I'm all for. Yeah, I think they said something along the lines of like, I'm all for standing up for trans people too, but like, you didn't need to take it this far. Fuck you. Then you're not actually for standing up for it. If you have like trans friends and you aren't willing to go to bat for them and you aren't willing to get into fucking fight with somebody who's being shitty and disrespectful and dismissive of their humanity, and you aren't willing to vote in a way for people who are going to protect them and protect their rights and vote against people who are going to fucking hurt them, like, you don't have trans friends. Trans people, and there's a big fucking difference. So like, put up or shut up. That's what I'm saying. And then since Jimmy's not back yet, I'm going to say here that if you ask really nicely in the chat, Jimmy will show you his belly button. He will do it. So if you're watching this, or I guess listening to this, I need you to, on the next several shows, ask Jimmy to show you his belly button, and he'll do it. If enough people ask, he's a little shy, but if enough people ask, he'll do it. So I need you to start asking him, make it a trend in the comments. We need to get the numbers up so that enough people on every show are like chanting in the comments, show that button, show that button, show me that belly button, Jimmy. Because he'll do. He's very proud of it. He's very proud of it, and he wants people to know about it, but he's embarrassed to talk about it. He doesn't want to feel like he's leading the charge. You know what I mean? So you have to ask him to give him the confidence he needs to show you something that he's very proud of, which is, again, his belly button.
My belly button?
That's that. So don't listen to any of that. Don't worry about it.
It's funny that you say that because I have said many times, I would rather my straight up dick pics leak than pictures of me casually shirtless. That is not 1000% true. I have a pretty deep belly button right now. Hopefully.
Yeah, I told him how proud you were. You don't need to fucking brag.
It's deep. There's a lot of lint gets in there. It's always dark blue, even if I wear a white shirt. It's the weirdest thing.
Keep it to yourself.
Somebody explain the science of that. How come if I wear a white shirt, I still get dark blue lint? Where is it coming from? I need to know.
From what orifice did I produce this lint?
Let me tell you, I forgot I had ordered groceries. The only reason I ordered groceries was because there is a chance that Matt will be stopping on his way home from a convention today to utilize my woodworking, we'll say skills, even though it's more tools, but might need to use one of my woodworking tools on the way home. And I realized that there's a high chance he'll need to use the bathroom. Every time he stops by, he usually does. He or Arden will, and the hand soap in that is in the, that phase that you're in denial about needing to refill the hand soap, where you're like pumping it like 30 times just to get the right amount in, or you're like opening it and wiping it out with your finger. It's kind of in that phase.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about. I haven't been there in a long time, but I get what you're saying.
Yeah.
Amber and I are bougie, and we wait until there's a fucking like Bath and Body Works sale, and we order like 5,000 fucking soaps and just keep them and everything. We're fucking. You should come by sometime. Try our cool soaps. We have 1 million of them.
I will. I do order a lot, but I'm finally at the end of mine. So I just did a soap refill, but with it, I had ordered roast.
That's why. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. We never have to refill it. We can just exchange the soaps because we're that fucking cool, y'all. I'm not trying to boast or anything like that, but we're rich in soaps over here.
Rich in soaps. God, I didn't know they were doing that well.
We're fucking living high on the soap hog.
Let's see.
The soap hog.
Someone said that you and Josie on the channel, you and Josie have the warmest smiles.
Cool.
Yeah. Yeah, everything's pretty nice. I'm trying to scroll to find you something else.
It's about 98.6 degrees in the mouth.
Hell yeah. Forrest's face when he said he has a sexual relationship with God has me fucking crying. You stole that from me, you bastard. That's my bit. I don't know what you said, but apparently you said you had a sexual relationship with God.
No, I didn't say that. Some guy. It was when it was like one of the first shows I ever did with Matt, and this guy called in. I think it was biblically. I think we let biblically on for a time, he at some point or another said that he has his relationship with God is like so complete and so perfect. He even has a sexual relationship with God. And I think the thing that I asked at the time if God is a top or a bottom, and it like nobody answered me, but like everybody in the comments was like that was like the trending thing for a second. I saw in the comment section of that one.
I see. Okay, at least you didn't steal my bit.
No,
I'm just kidding. You can have all my bits. That I heard it as it came out. It's not what I meant.
It's fine. It's fine.
It's what's funny is Eve and I were talking about this when we were reading the comments, how you and I have a similar chemistry to what she and I have. I would say our on-air chemistry is almost identical. And yet when she and I are having a good time together, the comments are, wow, Jimmy flirts with Eve a lot. And never is it that I'm flirting with you. And arguably, I am. No, I'm just kidding. But it's weird.
I mean,
it's weird how I think people don't realize just how queer I am, except for that one guy who commented about how every time I bring it up, I need to stop bringing it up because every time I do, he can't stop himself from imagining me sucking his dick. That's a real comment. He's like, you give me no choice when you bring up, and it's just, holy shit, what the fuck is wrong with
bring it up more?
Yeah, I know. I was like, bro, there's nothing wrong with that except for that you're not keeping it to yourself. That's not a thing I need to know. You need to talk.
I did a bit with this guy named Scotty Wartooth who does a cosplay of Jesus, and he on TikTok, and we did a video together where I, as a biologist, call Jesus on the phone and start complaining about like human design errors and stuff. And at one point in the call, I'm like, why are our testicles so stupid? Like, why are they hanging outside of our bodies where it's dangerous? They can get hurt. Whales and hippos have their testicles inside their body. It's safer. It's more streamlined. And like, I'm just complaining about this. And I got this one comment talking about how fucking stupid I am and how terrible evolution. And they brought that up. And they're like, first of all, having the testicles outside the body is more visually appealing. And it looks, and I'm like, all I heard is that you like the look of balls. That's all I'm getting from this comment. I haven't read the rest of the comment. I won't read the rest of the comment. I know how much you like the look of balls. That's all I need to know about you, sir.
I'm just like, now I'm just trying to, the people who don't understand sexual selection and stuff, and it's just silly. It's literally like, if that was true, ovaries would be on the outside as well, and men would be obsessed with them. Show off those little ovary cleavage, and little
ovary cleavage.
Yeah, just peeking the little ovaries under the belt. Whatever. People are dumb. Let's see. I'm not fine. I even tried to like. Oh, here's a great one. Forrest Valkai continues to be the only good host. I really don't like when people talk over the callers to basically put them down and shame them, because you never do that, Forrest. Doesn't matter if they're wrong. Nope. That doesn't warrant shaming them, and only serves to get their atheist viewer base to go, ha, look, stupid Christian.
No, I mean, this person's correct in every way, and I am the best host, and that is exactly why. Smash that like and subscribe, but to me instead, they go to my channel, like and subscribe.
I don't have a problem with anybody saying that they're the best host, because I don't feel I'm the best host. So I'd have to.
I don't feel I'm the best host either.
I'd have to third person approximate. I'll tell you who I think will be the best host in a couple of years. I'll tell you off air, or maybe not even a couple of years, but one of the people who works here, I'm seeing the rate at which they are getting better, and I'm like, okay, holy shit, this person's gonna be fucking nuts before too long. Nice. Yeah. But I don't want to put pressure on them or tell people who my favorites are. All right, let's do the quiz. You know?
Yeah, I'm down. Text me who that person is after the thing, so I can try to like latch some of my fame to them, and like become friends with them and grow by proxy.
You're gonna wanna. I shot you the text, but you won't be surprised. I don't think at all by the text. But you're gonna wanna for sure latch on.
Right on. For real though, I am joking about that, but actually though, if somebody's doing a really good job, I want to work with them. That sounds cool.
Yeah, no kidding. For me, I'm in the position of like, my hope is that everybody goes on to do great stuff, and that hopefully I can be a useful. I don't want someone to just look back and go, in my history was Jimmy and his network. I want someone to look back and go, in my history was Jimmy, and I'm glad he was there because he, the tools that he helped me with were effective. But I don't need to be thanked at an award show or anything. I just want to feel like I'm making an impact that doesn't require me to put my face on shows anymore.
For sure.
That's my highest aspirations. Anyway, were you surprised I sent you the text? I can't imagine you are.
I haven't looked.
Oh, well, why don't you?
I'll look now. Hold on. Just hang on a second. Oh yeah, no, yeah.
Yeah, right. I felt like I gave away enough of context. People will wonder about it. All right, don't put it in the comments of the show though, patrons. Keep it to yourself because I don't want to have to read. We read the comments from the previous show at the end of each show. I don't want to have to read all of those people speculating over who I think the best at specifically the call. I mean, this person's going to be great at a lot of stuff, but I think at the call-in format stuff, holy crap. I'm just blown away. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. Today, you are playing for Elizabeth. Now, we have multiple Elizabeths.
Okay.
I believe the easiest way to tell you if you're the correct Elizabeth, I am referring to a person named Elizabeth who is probably Elizabeth and the last initial is G. I think that will help rule out the other people who are like, am I the Elizabeth? But if you don't receive the message at some point in the next 24 hours with either the prize, which is a t-shirt, Never Have a Bad Day t-shirt, the Forrest Valkai holiday special that won the mug thing, or if Forrest does not get 4 out of the 5 questions right, you will get a $10 coupon to the same merch store. That'll become as a message. So if you never get that message, you're not the right Elizabeth.
The t-shirt.
No,
all right, cool. Yeah. I'm here for Elizabeths everywhere, but especially this one.
We use because I have such an obsession with the materials and how it feels on the, we don't use the cheaper tier. It is not, $10 is not almost the cost of the t-shirt, I guess is what I'm trying to get at. We do the nice, super soft, autism approved ones. Anyway, here we go. Yeah. Of these 5 of them, it's 5 questions. 4 of them are multiple choice. 1 of them is not. The first one is not. I think you will find the first one very easy. I'd say it goes harder. It gets harder as we go. Question number 1. Donald Trump is on trial for hush money payments that he concealed, potentially to avoid swaying the election. Can you name the porn star he allegedly paid off?
Wasn't that Stormy Daniels still?
Correct.
Oh, fuck.
That was a
fucking noise. I didn't like it. Yeah, I hate it. Go on.
Wait till you get something wrong, because I forgot to fix the pad, so I have to use a different wrong. It won't be crickets this time. Anyway, if you prefer, we could do when you get it right. That's an option.
That is better.
You like the air horn more? All right, cool. I'll turn it
on. I love the air horn. Yeah, let's do that. And if I get it wrong, do the same air horns but louder, and that's how I'll know.
Or a different rhythm. All right.
So good.
Question number 2, multiple choice. In what major U.S. city did a bridge collapse after a collision with a container ship occur recently? Is it A, Baltimore, B, Newark, C, New Orleans, or D, Ease Nuts?
Oh, that's a good. Yeah, it's either Baltimore or Ease Nuts. I'm gonna go with Baltimore.
All right, that is correct.
Hell yeah.
The smallest, this is number 3, the smallest of the formed elements of the blood are the A, white cells, B,
platelets.
Can I finish, please?
All right, go ahead.
A, white cells, B, red cells, C, platelets, or D, Ease Nuts?
It's platelets. You actually put them in order of size. White cells are the largest, red cells are kind of middle, platelets are small, and your nuts are tiny. So that's exactly how it was.
Well done. All right. 4. When looking at the cross-section of the human tibia, one finds the red marrow in the A, medullary cavity, B, cancellous bone, C, periosteum, or D, Ease Nuts?
I'm 99% sure it's medullary cavity.
Is that your final answer?
I know it's correct, but what was the third one again?
Periosteum.
Yeah, no, it's not that. Yeah, it is medullary cavity. Yeah.
Correct. All right. This is the final question. You've already, Elizabeth, if you are Elizabeth G, if you're out there listening, you have qualified. You have won the t-shirt. You will be receiving a link with a promotional link. When you click that, it will take you to our store where you will be able to get the shirt and the shipping for free. Congratulations. But this one is for kicks and giggles and a bonus and fun. Name the fallacy committed in this statement. My son listened to Taylor Swift as a kid and now he's gay. Is that A? Wait, do you want to see if you can name it without the multiple choices, or do you want the multiple?
Correlation and causation.
But that's not what the name of the fallacy is.
Oh, fuck.
Right.
Okay, give me the names then. Yeah.
Is it A, the genetic fallacy, B, the post hoc ergo propter hoc fallacy, or C, begging the claim, or D, nuts?
I think I'm trying to remember because like that's the names of these things fucking suck.
That's true.
I think I want to say genetic because that's like no, it's post hoc ergo proctor hoc, I think.
Correct.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, a genetic fallacy would be more like my son is gay because he how would I make it? The genetic fallacy is like the origin fallacy. It originated, that's wrong because
that's where I was confused. I was like, is the gayness originating? But then I was like, no, it has to be like the arguments originating from a thing. Therefore, I do or don't like it. And it's
right.
like it's like argument from authority, but worse.
Yeah, it's almost the opposite. Like, that's wrong because Fox News said it, kind of thing.
Right, right. Yeah, that's genetic fallacy for sure. Yeah.
Well done. You have one. We'll little applause here. Woo!
Oh, all right.
I love this.
Get those people out of your house.
This soundboard is the shit. It's got the theme song on it.
Oh.
Obviously, it's how I'm talking to you through my phone, just a Bluetooth connection. It's got multiple mic. I love this soundboard. I'm very happy that, and I don't even have it connected to a computer right now. I can literally take it with me, record stuff anywhere, and I'm good to go.
Nice.
It's so tight. Anyway, I don't know why I'm talking about my soundboard. You might want one day. I don't know if you ever do a podcast. That's all I need you for, unless you want to stick around for the comments from the last episode that I did with Eve, which you are welcome to do. But I understand you're a hungry fella, and I don't want to keep you from that.
I'm quite. I've got a lot going on. But yeah, no, it was a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on the show. It was wild.
It was better than you thought.
Thank you too,
wasn't it? Like you went in and then you had a good time. I bet.
What I think is really notable is that this was just a phone call between you and I. Like this, the length of time we've been talking, the shit we've covered, the irreverence of the conversation. This has been exactly what a phone call between you and I is usually like.
But a little short, a little bit shorter.
Yeah, if we're being honest. Yeah, exactly.
We've had some 3 and 4 hour ones before. That's for sure. No, I appreciate that you quickly made time to get it done. I wanted to do this for a couple reasons. First of all, before we go further, and I wonder if I should have looped this at the beginning, or maybe I'll add it at the beginning, but, we're obviously talking to mostly an audience of patrons. Do you want to mention what your Patreon link is so that anybody who wants to cross support, go ahead and let them know?
Yeah, go to patreon.com/renegade science teacher, or just go to valkailabs.com and you can find like all my links to all my things on there. And that's pretty easy. My lowest tier is $3. It's pretty chill. So, and the thing is like, the shit that you get on my Patreon at the higher tiers is like, a Zoom meeting once a month. You get in my Science Probably book club, things like that. But most of it's just bonus content about just like shit that I'm doing. Like I don't post any like extra stuff like Jimmy does. I'm not saying my Patreon isn't worth it, but like I think that education should be free, and so like I try to keep everything free. But Patreon is a fun and exciting and accessible place for everybody who wants to spend $3 at least.
Cool. As I do these shows, certain things come up and I go, oh, I want to make sure we do that again in future shows, make that a segment. So in the future, I will try to make sure that everybody who, while they're promoting their Patreon, do slightly shit on my Patreon. Let's make sure we make that a tradition now.
For sure.
For real, man, I really appreciate you doing this. And I'm glad I'm trying to get as much done with you before you leave for the summer. So imagine I will probably annoy you more before you go, though probably won't do another one of this podcast before you head out, but we'll see.
Yeah, whatever works for you, man. Seriously, I'm easy. So yeah, I've got I don't know when this is going to come out, but I think I've got like today. It's coming out today. So I've got like 4 more things on the line. I've got I'm doing a show with Roxanne. We're doing it 'Cause I Wanna, I believe next Friday. On Monday, I'm doing the Sunday show tomorrow. On Monday, I'm doing Skeptalk with my friend Morticia. She's a microbiologist, and I think I'm doing the next Sunday show as well. So like, tune into all those things and send lots of super chats and help me make those shows as weird as possible, because they're going to be some of my last shows for a while.
Yeah,
I think I've got one more. I've got one more in May. I'm going to do one more Skeptalk with Jesse, and then that's going to be my last on-air performance for a minute.
Plus, you'll be participating in the charity streams.
Yes, I'll be in the charity stream as well. Yes,
that first weekend of May.
That is correct, and I think Austin is going to be my co-host for my little segment there.
And one other person, I don't remember who. We're doing panels of 3 this year instead of 2 because we have enough people. But you'll have one other. It might be Seth. I don't remember though.
I'm down to hang out with Seth. That's nice as fuck.
I'll let you know. Yeah, you're on the Sunday show with Eve this week, and at the end of the Sunday show, we're going to preview a portion of this week of this podcast.
Right on.
So it's going to be cool. It's going to be cool. Right. That's another reason.
Yeah, I'm really excited to work with Eve. I've been friends with Eve on TikTok for a while. I met her once at a party. She's a very, very nice person. We've never had the chance to actually work together, though. I'm really excited to see how that goes.
That's going to be a good show. I might even watch it, which I watch so little of our stuff. Just make sure you do stop by 5. Do stop by 5. You know, we gotta make sure that we don't bleed into other stuff. So yeah, awesome. Well, it's great talking to you. Thank you again for doing this. I'm going to read the comments off to people and do the outro, but I appreciate you, buddy.
Right on. Yeah, I'm gonna go soak. But it's been tons of fun being here. That was a callback to your Mormonism. Yeah. But I'm gonna go away now and get some food and then get back to work. But this has been the most podcast I've been on all day.
Hell yeah! You go enjoy your succulent Chinese meal.
I certainly will. Thanks for listening, everybody. Goodbye.
Later, dude. Well, that was fun, and it always is. The guy cracks me up. I just like him. He's a good man. He's a fun man, and he's long-winded. That's for sure. But I don't want anybody to think the crickets thing was actually done out of anger or bitterness or anything. It was. He and I can both go on for a long, long time, and I just hope one day he's as confident pushing me along as I am with him, because I deserve it. I really do. But I just love the guy. His passion is infectious. His kindness, his compassion on top of he's just a good dude. And it's fun. He's like, I'm trying to remember what show it was, but I watched, what was it? Where just somebody was they like hired an investigator. It was like, go find everything you can, all of the dirty laundry, all the skeletons in the closet. And then he goes and looks, and there are none. Like there's nothing. The guy's like perfect. That's kind of how I feel, where I'm just like waiting for that day of like, what part of you sucks? And so far, nothing. The guy's just a good guy. He's a good man, good friend, good person.